Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Friday, everybody. It has been a long week, and I'd be lying if I said that it hasn't been long for all of us given the news that we got last weekend. But we're finally here. It's Friday, and now that it's Notre Dame's offseason, it's now time for the Friday free-for-all mailbag. However, before we get there, and you guys can continue to put in questions and comments, super chats, whatever, as we go through our first topic of today. But as you guys know, college football awards are really tonight, and then the Heisman Trophy ceremony is going to be tomorrow. And obviously, Jeremiah Love is up for quite a bit of those awards. Doak Walker, Maxwell Award, the Walter Camp Player of the Year Award, and obviously he's one of the 4 Heisman finalists. And we wanted to take a moment because I don't know if we've done enough to kind of give credit, given the really crappy news that we got less than a week ago. That I don't know if we've given enough credit to what Jeremiah Love has done this season and what he's done to warrant this selection. And right now, he's not the odds-end favorite on FanDuel. Right now, it's Fernando Mendoza by a wide margin. Brian and I are both under the assumption that it should be, not will be, but should be Jeremiah Love. We wanted to talk about that for a little bit because he's a special player, man, and you and I both believe that he encompasses what this award truly is about.
It is. And I mean, we were kind of thinking we'd talk about it, but as far as like putting just that final touches on a brilliant career at Notre Dame, one that I kind of hold a little bit more close to my heart because of the fact that, like the whole commitment that he did on our show and just how awesome that was and how special that was and something we haven't done, since then. But it's one of those things where I thought we were going to get to kind of our send off of Jeremiah Love was going to come after the playoffs. And that just really didn't cross my mind that it, well, if they don't get in there, they'll play in a bowl game. It didn't really cross my mind that the Stanford game was the last game we're going to see him play. And it's still a little bit difficult to kind of even think through and think about, Trev. But, yeah, I mean, a brilliant career. So we'll kind of just real quickly talk about it now, just preview it now. And because it's going to come out tomorrow and just kind of look at just the make the case for why Jeremiah Love deserves the Heisman Trophy. And then, we'll make a prediction of what we think is going to happen. But it really was a brilliant career. And I can't, it's wild that it's over so quickly. Like I was thinking about this, just like Drake Bowen's going to be a senior next year. Jaden Osbury is going to be a senior next year. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago that we were talking about these guys as high school recruits coming into the show. And it's a wide right. But let's talk about the season Jeremiah Love had, because it really was a special season for Notre Dame. And yesterday, Trevor, he was named to 5 different All-American lists yesterday. None of the ones have come out that go into consensus and unanimous and all that. I'd be shocked if Jeremiah Love is not a unanimous All-American this year. But when you look at just the results he had 1,372 rushing yards, which is the 4th most in Notre Dame history. It also ranks 4th nationally. If you look at his yards per carry compared to the other kind of power 4 guys that he's kind of matched up against, Jeremiah Love is at 6.89. The next closest is Ahmed Hardy at 6.47. Ahmed Hardy obviously has about 88 more yards than Jeremiah on 42 more carries. And Jeremiah has 2 more touchdowns. You've got Cam Cook from Jacksonville State's ahead of him. Evan Dickens from Liberty is ahead of him. Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, who had a great year for Nebraska, by the way, had 1,451 yards. So that's 79 yards more than Jeremiah Love, but he has 52 more carries than Jeremiah Love. Just to put some context into how good he was running the ball this year. Rushing touchdowns, Jeremiah was 3rd in college football this season with 18 rushing touchdowns, which ties the Notre Dame all-time record. He had 21 total touchdowns this season, which is a new Notre Dame record, breaking the record that Jerome Bettis had held since 1992, which speaks volumes about how good of a season that you have to have. It also ranks, like as I said, 2nd in the country, but it's number 1 amongst Power 4 running backs. His 1,652 yards from scrimmage, which is rushing and receiving, is 3rd nationally this season. and is the third best in Notre Dame history behind only Golden Tate and Alan Pinkett. Those are two good names to be behind when it comes to Notre Dame lore. Obviously, Golden Tate went above that in his phenomenal 2009 Biletnikoff winning season for the Irish. And he also, you talk about the kind of young man he is. If you look into what that Disney Spirit Award he won yesterday is, which talks about just someone who that people believe to be an inspirational figure, he didn't win that award because he's making inspirational runs. He won that award because of the type of young man he is. You also just talk about the things that go beyond the numbers, the impact on the Notre Dame football team. Yeah, it's impressive that his 228 yards against USC on national TV in a rivalry game, set a Notre Dame record for a home game. And you think about how long Notre Dame's been playing games in that stadium. But it's just what he meant to the Notre Dame offense. His ability to make plays in the run game, his ability to make plays in the pass game, his ability to be a great blocker, like not just a good blocker, but a great blocker when need be. And then, of course, Trevor, the highlight reels are unmatched. With all due respect to the other guys in the Heisman Trophy running this year, there's nobody that has a better highlight reel than what Jeremiah Love is going to put together.
No, not at all. I mean, when you talk about a Heisman Trophy winner, he checks every single box when you evaluate what you look for. Like you said, all of the character values on and off the field, what he means for his team, now look, we can have a debate about what Vanderbilt would be without Diego Pavia. But high-level football, when you look at what Jeremiah Love brings to the table, I look at performances in big games. Check that off the box for Jeremiah Love. And everybody wants to sit down and talk about statistics. Like, well, when Derrick Henry won it, he had over 2,000 rushing yards that season. Yeah, maybe so. Derrick Henry also didn't have a running back in the backfield with him that had 113 carries, 674 yards, and 11 rushing touchdowns behind him.
That's right.
I mean, Jeremiah Love is one of 5 runners in the FBS that has over 1,300 rushing yards and is the only one that has a counterpart in the backfield over 600 rushing yards. And he's the only one in the top 10 in rushing yards in college football that is under 200 carries. Yeah. So what he does is exceptional. He has the big plays. He has the highlight reel plays. He expanded his game into the pass game this year. I mean, one-handed catch on a wheel route in prime time against Texas A&M that went for a touchdown. Don't know of a whole lot of other players in the country, especially running backs, that are going to be doing that, man. It's impressive. It's really impressive.
I mean, Derrick Henry was an absolute monster in 2015. There's 2,019 yards. But the thing you got to remember, I mean, let's do some math. That is 847 more yards than Jeremiah. He only had 91 receiving yards that year. But Derrick Henry also had 196 more carries than Jeremiah Love as well, and was such a focal point of that. But, look, you don't need as many carries when you're breaking 40, 50, 60-yard runs off kind of regularly. And that's what kind of made him so impressive, was just his ability to be a home run back. I mean, he could literally score from anywhere on the field. I mean, in the last 2 years, he had 2 90-plus yard touchdown runs in the last 2 years. I think I don't know that any other Notre Dame running back has 2 of those. I mean, we've seen others do it. We saw CJ Prosise do it in 2015. We saw Josh Adams do it in 2000. We saw 2 backs do it in 2015. We saw it twice in 2015, but it was 2 different backs. It was CJ Prosise against Georgia Tech, and then Josh Adams against Wake Forest. We saw Dex go 97 yards 3 years later. We've seen 90-yard touchdown runs. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone do it twice at Notre Dame, and that's it speaks volumes about how good he was. This is his career is one of the job he's done this season is one of the many times where I think about how great it would be to have Lou Samoji with us still, and to listen to Lou talk, to be able to put this in context and put all the things he did in context would be absolutely amazing. But what he meant to the team was invaluable. What he does as a leader of the team, what he does off the field, which all these things are supposed to take into account. And he's absolutely the most dominant player in college football. Julian Saint had a tremendous year. This is not us saying Francisco Mendoza had an overrated year, Julian Saint had an overrated year, Diego Pavia had an overrated year. Those are all great quarterbacks. It's just that nobody was as dominant as Jeremiah Love. And did so playing half the year behind a starting offensive line that was missing 3 guys that we expected to be starters at the beginning of the year. Think about that. what would his run numbers look like if we got a full year of Billy Schrauth, in a full year of Ashton Craig, in a full year of Charles Jagasol? Think about what that would look like. It's impressive to think about. And there was one team that really focused on we're gonna have a game plan to take CJ Carr out of the game. One team made that mistake, and it was USC. And what happened? Jeremiah Love went for 228 yards on 24 touches in that game. He was truly special, Trevor. And in my opinion, and it's not just us saying this, there's even people at ESPN that rode the Notre Dame doesn't belong in the playoffs bandwagon that'll sit there and tell you Jeremiah Love's the best player in college football. And I don't know that it's close.
No. I mean, shoot. Even Booger McFarland, who was riding he was borderline rooting. Yeah, bro. I mean, he was borderline rooting for Notre Dame not to get in the playoffs.
It wasn't borderline rooting for Notre Dame to be out. He was flat out rooting for Notre Dame to be out.
Yeah. And then rounded it all out with, but Jeremiah Love is the best player in the country. It's like, all right, well, that doesn't do it the service you think that it does, but I appreciate the sentiment nonetheless. But I agree with you, man. Jeremiah Love is a special football player, and I've seen some mailbag questions come in about him, and I can't wait to dive into those as well. But this is an extremely, extremely special football player that at the end of the day, I am happy that I got to watch for 2 years. It's one of those where it's tough because you never know you're watching greatness until it's over, which is unfortunate. And then, that's when you kind of look back at it. I really, really wish that the regular season ended differently. Gets hurt in the Stanford game. He was about to put up some numbers. Also wish the Stanford game wasn't at 10:30 at night. I didn't think the last time I was going to watch Jeremiah Love take a snap in a Notre Dame uniform was going to be at 1 a.m. Yeah, so all those things, but it doesn't take away from how special of a player he was, man.
He was. And yeah, I think the ending was kind of anticlimactic, right? And a lot of the talk about Notre Dame the last couple weeks has been about the playoffs and not going to a bowl game and all those type of things. And unfortunately, I mean, those conversations had to be had, right? I mean, we needed to have those conversations. But it does disappoint that it did take away a little bit from the Jeremiah Love campaign, so to speak.
Yeah.
And what he was able to show. And I think that's kind of the disappointing part. I mean, I knew we were watching something great. What I would say is I don't think I appreciated it to the degree that we did until it was over. Partly because, in the playoff, you could go into a game or even a bowl game, you could go into a game and say, this is a chance that this is the last time we could see insert player. I mean, we kind of knew that every game we were playing last year. We knew going into the playoffs that this could be the last time we ever see Xavier Watts. I mean, this could be the last time that we get a chance to see Riley Leonard playing for Notre Dame. Every game had that. We didn't go into the Stanford game thinking this is going to be the last time. It was not even a blip on my radar that this could be the last time we see Jeremiah Love play a football game.
Nope.
That's disheartening.
Yeah, that's definitely the better way to put it.
Greatness.
Yeah, definitely the better way to put it. For people in the chat that are confused, I don't want to say I had no idea how great Jeremiah Love while I was watching him. That's not it. It's just I assumed we were going to see more.
What you're referring to, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I took your greatness to refer to is you don't think about what it means in the scale of Notre Dame lore while you're in it. You think about that after the fact.
Yeah, 100%.
We know what we're watching right now. I mean, you've been saying for over 2 months that Jeremiah Love's best player in college football. So it's not like you didn't know you were watching greatness, but it's like you're not thinking about, gee, I wonder if this is what it was like watching Jerome Bettis play. Gee, I wonder if this is what it was like watching Rocket play or Tim Brown play. That's not what you think of. You think of, oh, man, we can go beat anybody right now because if Jeremiah Love keeps playing like that. So I get where you're coming from. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, here's hoping. The Heisman ceremony is tomorrow night. We're going to find out at 7 p.m. on ESPN. The other college football awards will be announced. I think the Jim Thorpe will be announced tonight, the Doak Walker. Those are two that Notre Dame players are up for. Obviously, Leonard Moore for the Jim Thorpe, and then Jeremiah Love for the Doak Walker Award, which, by the way, on FanDuel, he is the runaway favorite to win by a lot. Right now he has, let me see. The only awards that are out on FanDuel right now is the
Doak
Doak
Walker.
Walker.
You talking about?
Yeah. And he has minus 1,250 odds to win the Doak Walker Award. The next closest is Ahmad Hardy at plus 850.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very.
Well, and that's historic as well. Like, will he be the 8th Heisman Trophy winner? I don't think so, unfortunately. Trev, what are his FanDuel odds right now for winning the Heisman? It's not. They're not. They're
for the Heisman? No, it's not. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just not that close. Right now, Jeremiah Love has plus 35,000 odds.
Right. So
to win the Heisman.
I mean, I think they know that it's going to be Mendoza. I mean, and he had a heck of a year. He's not nearly as dominant as Jeremiah Love. But the historic aspect too is, I mean, Notre Dame has never had a Doak Walker Award winner. And the last time Notre Dame had they've only had one finalist for the Doak Walker Award, which first went out in 1990. Think about that, in 1990. And Notre Dame had a finalist in 1992 in Reggie Brooks, who was a finalist along with Garrison Hurst and Marshall Faulk. Unfortunately for it, and I think that year for Reggie Brooks, him not winning the Doak Award, him not being higher than, I think it was like 5th or 6th in the Heisman Trophy, was partly about what hurt Jeremiah Love this year, is that he was splitting the backfield with Jerome Bettis. And Jeremiah was splitting the backfield with Jadarian Price, which is what was best for the team. But that hurt, in my opinion, Reggie's chances to win the Heisman, on top of the fact he was going against some all-time greats. And this year, I think that is going to keep Jeremiah from winning the Heisman, my opinion. But I don't think it's going to keep him from winning the Doak Walker Award, which is something that's pretty amazing. And we've seen the Maxwell and Player of the Year award and the other Walter Camp Player of the Year. We've seen those get split from time to time, where the guy that wins the Heisman doesn't necessarily win those awards. So, because I think it's like Brady Quinn and Manti Te'o, both won I believe won the Maxwell Award. I'm pretty sure. Let me go. 2006. Yeah, Brady Quinn won it in 2006, and Manti won it in 2012. So we've seen that. And they don't know. I mean, last year, Ashton Genty won the Maxwell Award. Michael Penix won it the year before that. The last time a Heisman Trophy winner has won the Maxwell Award was 2022. So, I mean, it could happen. I'm just saying it's not a given that he won't win those, which I think he at least deserves to take home the Doak Walker Award. I'll be a little surprised if he doesn't win that. If he doesn't win that, then I'm going to say there is an absolute scandal of people unfairly targeting Notre Dame players for things that should have, like, you'd think Notre Dame should join a conference. Okay, fine. That has nothing to do with whether or not Jeremiah Love's best running back in college football. Nothing to do with that. And but I think he'll have a shot to win some of those awards, which just, again, as we said, adds to his legacy. And my dad texted me during the show today, and he's like, of all the great runs he had, you think about the 98-yard run in the playoffs last year, the 94-yard run against BC, the 56-yard spin move touchdown against Pitt this year. You think of the Navy touchdown where he gets spun around and he gets up and he goes. You think of the hurdling over a guy from Army last year for a touch. I mean, you think of all the impressive runs that Jeremiah Love's had. His most impressive run might have only gone for 2 yards. I mean, think about that. Think about that. The run against Penn State, that might have been the most, wow, that was impressive. And it just, again, he was a tremendous kid to watch. And the last thing I want to leave with this, if you talk to anybody around the program, and believe me, folks, I've been doing this a long time, there's plenty of kids that you talk to people about, and they're like, yeah, he's a great football player, but I wouldn't let that kid go near my daughter. You know what I'm saying? There's been plenty of people that have told me things like that. If you talk to anybody around the Notre Dame program, you'll hear people rave more about who Jeremiah Love is as a young man than they will about him as a football player. That's a true story. And I think that says a lot about his character and how he was raised. And it says a lot about why he picked Notre Dame and why he never threatened to leave Notre Dame, and why NIL was not really a thing that was a driver of his decisions. He's a very unique, special young man. And I think that matters a lot more to me, because In 30 years, he won't be able to run the football the way that he does now. But he can still be the man that he is now, and even a better one. And that's the kind of legacy you want to leave. What impact did you make on the field? Great. What kind of impact did you make off the field? And I love the fact that Jeremiah Love actually cares about that. Not that he's just naturally a good guy. He cares about the impact he leaves on people that he comes in contact with. And I think that that's the spirit of what the Heisman Trophy is supposed to be about, and that's who Jeremiah Love is. And that matters a whole lot more to me than he's fast, can leap over people, because something could happen. He gets old, he gets injured, or he can't leap over people like that. He can't run a 4.4 anymore. But he can still be the man that he is. And I think that's pretty amazing.
I think that's really well said. Absolutely well said. And folks, that's going to do it for part one of today's show. Up next is the Friday free-for-all mailbag. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, the best way to support what we do here, especially now that it's the off season, is be a premium message board subscriber at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, it is Friday free-for-all mailbag time here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, and so if this does happen to be your first one or your first mailbag, we've been doing them throughout the week. But really now, from here on out, the rest of today's show is going to be focused to answering your guys' questions, daily listeners. This isn't just for premium message board subscribers like the Buy, Sell, Hold is. It's for anybody that loves to listen to us on a day-to-day basis. That being said, also subscribe to the premium message boards, boards.irishbreakdown.com. But the way to get your question or comment answered, put a little MB for mailbag or a mailbox emoji that lets us know to set the question aside. And as always, super chats, all super chats will get answered throughout the show. Do our best to get them bumped to the top. Of Brian, we got a lot of awesome questions in here, man. I'm ready to dive into this. Super chat from Akshat Shakar. Appreciate you. How do you assess Gerby Lambert's season? He looked pretty promising, but had a so-so PFF grade. But from your eyes, how close is he to realizing his upside?
Well, if you've listened to me for very long, you know that I really don't give two rips about Pro Football Focus grades. I don't. Nor do I honestly expect him to have had great Pro Football Focus grades, because he's going to, like, the thing about Pro Football Focus grades, let's just assume for a second that I think they're valuable, and I don't. But let's just say for a second, I mean, they're a context thing. Like, hey, Pro Football Focus had that. I don't care much about them. But let's just say for a second that you look at it, they're not supposed to take into account, and they're not going to take into account how good something was relative to his experience and grade, right? I mean, they're not going to say, well, yeah, I'm going to give him a plus here or a point here, where I wouldn't give one to Billy Schrauth because the context of Billy Schrauth has played X number of snaps and Gerby hasn't. It's just, did you do the job or not? It's as simple as that. And that's going to kind of factor into a little bit as well, because as a young player, he is going to make more mistakes than a veteran player. And that was certainly true for Gerby. I mean, even later in the year, there'd be snaps where he just would, lean forward too much and fall down, or, he would take not the 100% best angle, and a guy'd get over top of him. There's some inexperienced things like that. Just like CJ Carr had those moments, Tate Johnson had those moments. Leonard Moore even still had some of those moments. Not as many because of how much he played last year, but definitely last year he had those moments. But the thing about Gerby is his overall level of play was really good, and for a redshirt freshman, it was elite. I mean, the way that freshman All-America awards go, they go to freshman or redshirt freshman. I think they should only go to true freshmen, but they don't. They go to redshirt freshmen. To me, Notre Dame had 3 freshman All-Americans this year, per the standard of what people look at. CJ Carr, Gerby Lambert, and Tate Johnson. And Gerby was an outstanding blocker for Notre Dame. Very physical in the run game. You got great movement. I mean, we could do clips. I'm working on my season ending, my end of season data right now, as far as like run game numbers and stuff like that. I'm sure I'll have some highlights on there where you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, wow, that was really impressive. Like, he took that guy from right guard and drove him all the way out past Anthony Knapp. You know what I mean? Like, he had blocks like that. That's not being hyperbolic. You know, was really good at getting to the second level, plays with a great base. You know, he's athletic. He's surprisingly athletic. And he's very good in pass pro. I mean, this year, Gerby Lambert only gave up 8 pressures all season and only gave up 1 sack, according to Pro Football Focus. You know, so if you want to look at, like, their grades, now he gets a really low pass blocking grade. I don't know how those two things equate. You know, I couldn't tell you how that works. Anthony Knapp had a very low pass blocking, or had a relatively low pass blocking grade, and Emil Wagner had a higher one. Anthony Knapp gave up 2 more pressures than Emil Wagner, but gave up 1 less hit, and Emil Wagner had a way better pass block grade. Gerby Lambert gave up only 1 more pressure than Emil Wagner and gave up 2 fewer hits plus sacks than the quarterback, and Emil Wagner had a great pass blocking grade. I watched them all season. Emil Wagner was not as good in pass pro as Gerby Lambert or Anthony Knapp, but his PFF grade was higher. So it's things like that I just don't care about. You know, but what I can say is he's every bit the 5-star player we thought he could be. My only thing that I would say is I'd like to still see him play tackle. If you want to ask me what a perfect world scenario is for Notre Dame next year, you're not asking that here, but I'm sure that you would on the board, because Akshat is a member of the board, which we greatly appreciate you. It would be, I mean, like, not knowing Ashton Craig's health, so I'll leave Ashton out of it for right now. But if we don't know about Ashton's health, it'd be left to right. It'd be Will Black, Billy Schrouth, Anthony Knapp, Charles Jagasol, Gerby Lambert. That would be my starting 5. And that'd be a nasty offensive line.
Yeah, that'd be filthy.
Opinion.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, for Gerby Lambert this season, man, I think at times he looked like a redshirt freshman, and at other times he looked like a redshirt junior. Physically, he's tremendous. 6'7", 335. There's just some things that I would like to see with him, like from a patient standpoint. Sometimes a pass pro, he would shoot his hands a little bit too quickly, lunge after, especially in stunts. That's sometimes when you could kind of see him end up on the ground a little bit. But he's a very powerful blocker. Definitely just getting started. Very excited to see what he does next season. But yeah, I'm with Brian. I don't pay attention to. I don't evaluate. I know Brian doesn't evaluate how good a player's season was because of what Pro Football Focus puts as their grade. You know,
it's just interesting to look at in context.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Super chat from DJ7. Appreciate you. Salute to Vince, who always loves Friday mailbags.
He does. It would not shock me if Vince was listening to the show right now. We texted a little bit this morning. His surgery went well from what we are told and what he was told. And they got it all out. You know, obviously, for those who don't remember, Vince had surgery yesterday to remove a cancerous tumor from his kidney. And he's on the mend. He said he's very sore, but he's doing good otherwise. I think he's still in the hospital, I believe, today. But we'll call and check up on him again afterwards. But for those who believe in the power of prayer as I do, more continued prayer for Vince. This is going to be a bit of a road to recovery for him. But no, he's doing good. He's doing good. He's in good spirits from what I can tell. We talked with his wife last night, and then he was up for talking a little bit this morning, or at least texting a little bit this morning. So he's doing better. Thank you for that, TJ. And he does love Friday mailbag.
From Andrew Burke. Appreciate the super chat, man. For getting auto bids and conference champions, how would you have ranked the top 25 college football playoff, and how would you have it playing out?
So basically, are you asking, Andrew, like, where would I have everybody ranked and seated? Is that how you read the question, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's how I would do it. Cause I don't, so like conference championship games mean something to me. And so I'm going to consider them. But what he's saying is like, okay, you don't have to get automatic bids and all that stuff. If we were just putting the best teams in the playoffs, right, and seeding them based on how the season went, no automatic bids. My number 1 seed would be Indiana. I think that is where I'm going to go. I'm going to go Georgia would be my number 2 seed. Reason why is you win the SEC championship. That means something. I think Ohio State's still the best team in the country. I think they got outplayed on one Saturday. I think if they play in a rematch in the playoffs, I think Ohio State will win against them. But, they did lose that conference championship game, and Ohio State didn't have a strong enough strength of schedule to be ahead of, to me, the SEC champ who had the same record. Ohio State is my number 3. I think those are the and then Texas Tech is my 4. I think those are all no-brainers as the top 4. I think you could debate the order. If you wanted to say, Trev, hey, I'm going to have Ohio State 2 and Georgia 3, okay. It is splitting hairs to me. It's just I'm giving Georgia a little bit of credit for winning the SEC championship because how you perform in championship games should matter. My number 5 seed is Oregon. They're my number 5. I would have them. My number 6 team. Now, we're doing this based off combination of who passes the best eye test, who has the best numbers, who's the more dominant team, all that kind of stuff. We're not doing the superficial, oh, you're 10-2. My number 5 would be Oregon. My number 6 would be Texas A&M. I would have them ahead of Ole Miss. The Ole Miss thing is I have Ole Miss 7, Trevor, just because I don't think a team should be punished because their coach bailed on them. Unless they're on the bubble. Like if Kalen DeBoer left Bama to go to LSU and was not going to coach in the playoffs and you're the 10 seed, I'm dropping you down. But when you're the 5, 6, or 7 seed and you've gone 12-1, I just have a hard time taking you completely out of the playoffs. I would, and so I kind of have them where I have them. I have Notre Dame is my number 8 seed. Miami is my number 9 seed. BYU is my 10 seed. Oklahoma is my 12 seed. And you're going to love this one, Trevor. Texas is my 12. Bama losing in the SEC championship and having their second blowout loss of the season, including one to a 5-7 team, and the fact that they just walked into the playoffs has them behind Texas for me. Now, Texas had their own bad losses. But what knocked Texas out behind Alabama before the SEC title game no longer is valid. And obviously, Salty, you don't always have to be that salty. Obviously, I meant 11 is Oklahoma and 12 is Alabama. But that would be my 12. Look, you lost to 5-7. You got blown out by a 5-7 team. The team that Florida got beat by that was bad, 4-8, blasted the team that Alabama got beat by. Your 25-point loss on the road to Georgia is not as bad to me as a 21-point neutral site game where I think Texas was more competitive. Texas was at least in that game for a half. You know what I mean? Where Alabama was never in that game. So Alabama's not a playoff team, and they haven't been a playoff team for 2 months. I'm sorry that I'm not impressed by your 3-point win over Missouri. Sorry. I'm not impressed that you were slightly better against Missouri than Kansas was. Sorry. So that would be so then my first round matchups would be Oregon versus Texas, Texas A&M against Oklahoma, Ole Miss versus BYU, and then Notre Dame against Miami.
I like it. Yeah, I like that a lot. Our top 6 is the exact same: Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas Tech, Oregon, Texas A&M. And then afterwards, I did quite a bit of movement. A bit. I put Notre Dame at 7. Mm-hmm. I think a team that handled business in the regular season and went 11-1 should still be in the playoffs. But it's an unknown when you lose your head coach and your primary play caller. I can't confidently say that they're going to look like the number 17 in the country. So I bumped. Ole Miss is still in my playoffs. They're just not at 7th. I did what I said the committee should have done back when we were talking about the hypothetical buffers for Notre Dame and Bama and all that stuff. So I have Notre Dame at 7. I have Miami at 8. I have Oklahoma 9. I have Ole Miss at 10th. I have BYU at 11th. And I have Vanderbilt at 12th. I have Vanderbilt in over Texas. Only reason being it's the same record. Obviously, head-to-head is not the end-all, be-all. Vandy lost to Alabama and Texas. And Texas has that really bad loss to Florida, and their offense is just it's way too up and down inconsistent for me. And I feel like Vanderbilt is a team that I know what I'm going to be getting from them week in and week out. So That's what my playoff top 12 would be. Matchups would be number 5 Oregon hosting Vanderbilt, number 6 Texas A&M hosting Ole Miss, number 7 Notre Dame number 7 Notre Dame hosting Ole Miss, and then number 8 Oklahoma hosting number 9 Miami, or other way around. But yeah, some interesting matchups.
Someone in the chat said this. What I find interesting is how much weight you put on Bama's first game but belittle Notre Dame's first game. Tell me something. When have I ever done that? When have you ever heard me say that Notre Dame's first game didn't matter? Tell me. When have anyone ever heard me say the first game against Miami doesn't matter? Never happened. Never happened. If it didn't matter, I wouldn't have Notre Dame 8, because I think Notre Dame is one of the 3 best teams of college football. So if I was to eliminate Notre Dame's first game and say, well, it's game 1, it doesn't matter, I'd have Notre Dame as a top 5 seed. So if you're going to sit there and push back on our rankings, at least respond to things I've actually said, not things that you have in your head that you just assume people say because you think their arguments are as lazy as your arguments. Because I've never said that Notre Dame's first game shouldn't matter. Matter of fact, I've gone on record as saying it absolutely should matter, but it shouldn't be the thing that trumps the rest of the season. That's what I've said. With Alabama, however, they got blasted in the first game of the year, and they got blasted in the last game of the year. That's who they are. They've been an average team when you look at championship caliber teams, they've been average all year. They had one great Saturday. They beat Georgia at the beginning of the year. They have not looked like a playoff team since. Oh, they beat Tennessee. So now we're going to give credit for beating 17-point wins over 8 and 4 teams? Cool. Notre Dame had a 22-point road win late in the year. So let's talk about that, right? But if you're going to respond to what I said, if you're going to be a fan of another team and be in here and actually engage with us, which we love, and at least respond to things I've actually said. And yes, losing by 3 points on the road to my number 9 team is going to carry a lot more weight than losing on the road by 2 touchdowns in a game that was never competitive to a team that went 5-7. So I think I'm not the one belittling the first game. I'm saying that's who they were all season. Can't run the football. They throw for a bunch of yards, but throw a bunch of times. Defense is just kind of okay. But when you get dominated in your first game and then get dominated in your last game, that doesn't mean anything to me. And if you're going to be a team that says, yeah, but look how impressive our wins are, then why isn't Texas in over Alabama? Because Texas's wins are far more impressive to me than Alabama's. Alabama's got one great win. After that, what's their next best win? Vanderbilt? I don't think Vanderbilt's that good. So, no. If you want to engage with me, respond to what I said. Don't make up some straw man argument to play some gotcha, because that's going to get served real hard here. Real hard. So we like discussion. But what I don't like is when people say, well, why do you do this when I haven't done that? Alabama's first game matters. Notre Dame's first game mattered. Because if I gave everybody mulligans for the first game of the year, Notre Dame's my 5 seed. Not my 8. They're an 8 because they lost to Miami. They're still ahead of Miami because the next 11 games, Notre Dame was clearly the better team. That's not just my opinion. Look at all the data. Notre Dame's the better team. So that's where I'm at. So that's why we count all the games, which is why Notre Dame is 8, not 5.
We had an entire show yesterday talking about why Notre Dame is at where they're at right now, because they didn't handle business in the first 2 games. Exactly. That includes the first game of the season.
Which the person in the chat knows, because I had to give them a timeout yesterday because they were saying the same kind of nonsense in the show yesterday. So you know we don't believe that. You know that. But you just play those little childish games of, well, let me just throw this thing in there to spin it in my direction and pretend like we're spinning too. That's called projection, and that doesn't go well here. So nice try.
Super chat from ND Milton fan. Appreciate you. What does it say to you if a captain transfers?
You'd have to give me more than that. Why does the captain transfer? Is he transferring because he doesn't like the culture at Notre Dame and thinks somewhere else is better? That'd be a bad sign. If he transfers because he's taken a higher offer and Notre Dame doesn't view him as worth the offer he's getting from another program, that tells me they really like their depth chart and they're trying to handle proper roster management, because this isn't 10 years ago where a captain just leaves because he doesn't like being at a place. Let's just say hypothetically that a player gets offered $1.5 million from another school. And you've got a budget, you've got a cap now you got to worry about. And you don't think that player's that much better than the young guy coming behind him, who you're going to pay $300,000 to next year. You let that guy walk. That's the reality of where we're at now in college football. You let that guy walk. Yeah. Now, there are some players, if I got to pay Leonard more, whatever I got to pay him to keep him, then you kind of got to pay Leonard more, whatever you got to pay him to keep him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would like to think that Notre Dame's captains and best players aren't in a situation where it's like, hey, we need top dollar. If you don't match this offer, I'm out. Most Notre Dame players aren't like that. Jeremiah Love wasn't like that. Benjamin Morrison wasn't like that. But if a kid's getting $1.5 million offer and you're like, sorry, man, best we can do is $250,000, then that kid's going to walk and should walk, honestly, because you've told him how much you value him. Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, if there's a player who is a solid player that's getting big offers from other schools because he plays a premium position, and I've got some young players that don't have the experience but just as much, if not more talent, I'm letting him walk, even if he's a captain. If there's a big gap and I'm not sure, like, man, we don't have anybody else kind of coming down the pike at that position, then I might say, man, we got to kind of bite the bullet and pay him. I think what it really says, if that's the scenario, is that you're a pretty loaded football team and you have to sometimes make tough decisions in a world where players are getting played and you can't just spend an unlimited amount of money because there's a cap now. That's what that tells me. So, but if it's because the kid was treated poorly, he was disrespected, he was, there was a bad relationship there between him and the coach. He doesn't like the culture of the program. If those things were true, that'd be problematic. But what you're going to see, ND Milton fans, you're going to see more and more of this. As top players, some of them are just going to say, hey, I'm being offered this by other schools. You're going to match it, and you're like, I can't come close to matching that. It's just not when we have a payroll to make and a budget that we have to live within. Can't do it. That's what it tells me.
Yeah, same page here. Yep. From Coleman Smith, I asked this on the board, but you must have not seen it. Do you know what position Fakatu will play in college? Do you see a spring decision?
Yeah, he's going to move inside. I believe he's going to end up being I know he plays kind of like a power end in high school, but he's going to be 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds, well over 300 pounds when it's all said and done. He's listed as 6'7". He may be that. I don't know. He looks more 6'5", 6'6" to me. It's all tall. He's already 290 at least. He's going to be 6'7", 305, 310 by the time he arrives in college. I think he's an inside guy, and he's a dominant inside guy. He's like a John Henderson type guy, that's 6'7", just absolute monster up the middle, athletic, can rush the. I mean, he's basically he could if he wants to, if you want to compare him to somebody at Notre Dame, he's a more powerful version of Riley Mills, potential wise. That's yeah.
It's a good comp. Yep. Another one from Coleman Smith. Do you think it would be better to have a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten in football and join the Big East, or have an agreement with the SEC?
In that scenario, I would rather go with the Big Ten in a scheduling agreement and join the Big East. I don't care to join the SEC for all sports. I would have no problem doing a 3 to 5 game scheduling agreement with the SEC every year. I'd have no problem with that. None at all. What I would have a problem with is if all the other sports had to play in the SEC. That's more my issue. Now, if you could ask me, would you rather have a scheduling agreement with the SEC or the Big Ten and have all their sports go to the Big East? I'd still go with the Big Ten just for me because there's more rivalries there. I'd actually love to have a relationship with both of them. I'd love to play 3 Big Ten teams a year and 2 SEC teams a year and have them replace the SEC. And then, if you want to have some, you play minimum 3, but if you want to schedule some things outside of your conference, then you can do that as well.
Yep.
And that's what I would look at doing.
Well, I think that would be the best. Moving forward, I know there's been a lot of talk about the ACC and Notre Dame's future with that conference, but having a scheduling agreement, it doesn't necessarily have to mirror. It doesn't have to be a 5-game scheduling agreement with all of the other teams coming in. So for those reasons, I'm also on board with you, Brian. Definitely a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, join the Big East for other sports. Because I would even bring back some cool matchups, for other sports as well. I mean, for basketball, that would be sweet. Playing UConn once or twice a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's some teams in that league right now in the Big East that Notre Dame does have some history with in different sports. And I'm actually pulling it up right now. But like if you look at the Big East now, there's some original Big East members in there. I believe I'm pulling it up, but I believe Providence is still in it. Yeah. So Seton Hall's in there, UConn's in there, Villanova's in there, DePaul's in there, Georgetown's in there, Providence is in there, and St. John's is in there, Marquette's in there. Those are all teams that Notre Dame played for years in basketball. And then another team in the Big East now is Butler. So you'd have like that in-state rivalry with Butler for other sports, basketball and things like that. And then Georgetown, I don't know how good the rest of the league is in lacrosse, but I know Georgetown's really good in lacrosse, or at least has had some years where they're good in lacrosse. So, I mean, I'd have to look into some of those things. Like, do they have lacrosse? Do they have soccer and all that? But that would be the ideal thing for me. But you also have to make sure that you're getting enough money to be in the Big East to make it for the value. But in a perfect world, I would say join the Big East for sports and then keep your football team independent, but have a scheduling agreement with the SEC and the Big Ten for minimum, let's say 2 to 3 games a year each. I think that'd be much better. And say, look, we want Michigan State and Purdue back on the schedule yearly. And then USC yearly, and then we'll rotate 2 other spots would be, where I would say is like, so I'm rotating 2, but then I'm getting these 3 Big Ten teams on my schedule more regularly, something like that, where I want to play in the course of a decade. I want to play Purdue and Michigan State. I want at least one of them every year. You know what I mean? And then USC every year. And, I'd even be willing to go there with you if I can't get all 3 of them on the schedule. That would be ideal for me. And then have a 2 to 3 game a year schedule against the SEC. And if you're Notre Dame, you've got to try to plan it to where like we need at least one elite brand on the schedule every year from the SEC, sometimes 2. And then the third one is more of a not elite. It's a Kentucky, it's a Vanderbilt, because what you don't want to have is you don't want to have Georgia, Alabama, and A&M because nobody in the SEC has to play that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? None of the top teams in the SEC get that. But, just you got to be careful because then you can end up in years where it's like, look, we need to be able to work with you on this. You don't just come up with a schedule and give it to us because we need to make sure that we don't have Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Bama, Georgia, and, LSU on the schedule in the same year. Nobody plays that. So Notre Dame shouldn't have to play that. So it would take a lot more work than just having something with one league. But if I could make it work, that would be the ideal scenario for me.
From Coleman Smith, should we see Gray in more flip spots? Gray half the time gets burnt at the field spot. I know there's more room to the field. However, he seems like Gray would be better having the sideline help.
I think it's a wild exaggeration of Christian Gray's play. I mean, if half the time he got burnt, do you know how bad he would be as a football player?
Yeah.
I mean, look, Coleman, I get it. There are times Christian Gray can do things that are frustrating. Christian Gray gave up 4 more receptions this year than Leonard Moore on 15 more targets. He actually allowed a lower percentage of completions than Leonard Moore did this year. But what Christian has to do is he's got to eliminate the bad plays. Christian also had more pass breakups than Leonard Moore this year. He had more total passes defense, or the same number of passes defense this year as Christian Gray. Actually, fewer, because he had 11 breakups and 2 picks. So he had more passes defense than Leonard Moore did this year. Christian Gray is a very good player outside of about 2 to 3 plays a game. That's honest. Don't sit there and say he gets beaten, QB's just missed. Let's be honest. So what you're saying when you say that, Coleman, is that I'm not being honest with you. And I'm telling you, as someone who's at the games and sees all of it, not just what's on TV, and as someone who looks at the all 22, how you're portraying Christian Gray is not accurate. You'd have to think that Mike Mickens is an absolute moron for keeping him on the field when he's got Creed Thomas and Mark Zachary and Dallas Golden and guys like that he's just going to keep trotting him out there. Christian Gray is a good football player who has to eliminate those 2 to 3 boneheaded plays a game. That's the truth on Christian Gray. That's the facts on Christian Gray. Now, if those things eventually don't get fixed and your younger players are evolving, then you do have to consider making a change. There's no question. If Mark Zachary and Dallas Golden have big jumps this year, or if Kari Adams comes in and he's as good as a freshman as Leonard Moore and Benjamin Morrison was, and Christian is still making those boneheaded plays in games, then yes, you do have to consider, is he the best guy for the job? But what we're not going to do here is kind of join the bandwagon and act like what people say about Christian Gray publicly is who he is. People also used to say Troy Pride got beat all the time because he'd get beat once or twice in a season, and then that's all people would hold on to for the rest of his career. Christian Gray's a very good football player 95% of the time. The problem is the position he plays, the 5% gets him burned. And that's what he's got to fix. But no, you don't flip spots. You don't lessen one spot to improve another spot. You work on Christian Gray getting better at the position he plays. That's the key.
Yeah, the unfair piece with Christian Gray is the fact that he gets compared to Leonard Moore and Ben Morrison. That's not fair. Ben Morrison's currently in the NFL, and Leonard Moore is the best cornerback in the country. And I'd put that up against any other defensive back in all of college football, not just the guy lining up across the field from Christian Gray. It's an unfair standard. Christian Gray is a heck of a football player, but there's things technically that he has to improve on. He also has to stay healthy. Health is also a factor in this. There's
big
so
factor.
many things.
And if you can't stay healthy, you gotta think about, is he the guy for the job? You have to think about that.
Absolutely.
And again, when you have talented players like they're going to have, sometimes you got to make decisions. And that's the frustrating thing with Christian is he's got to limit those big plays. Yeah. If you look at there's a kid that declared for the NFL draft from South Carolina yesterday, really good player. And they're talking about him being a high draft pick. He allowed 31 catches on 62 targets. Christian Gray allowed 30 on 61. The kid gave up 2 touchdowns, had 2 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, according to PFF. Christian Gray had allowed 2 touchdowns, which is less than Leonard Moore, by the way. 2 interceptions and 9 pass breakups. Their numbers are almost identical except for one area. That guy gave up 372 yards this year. Christian Gray gave up 466 because of those couple big plays. If he eliminates those, he's having a dominant season. And that's what he's got to fix. But it doesn't make him bad, and it doesn't mean that you do this. You fix those mistakes. That's the key. Here's one from this person that I've been going back and forth with. If the NCAA announced independents are ineligible for the CFP, when they're in the joint conference or just stay independent, not compete for the CFP, what they would do is they would sue and win because you can't collude in such a manner. There's no rule that you would be able to legally enforce that says a team that chooses to follow rules that are in existence. Because here's the thing that you and all the people that continue to make these lame, lazy points about Notre Dame need to understand is there are 0 rules that give Notre Dame exemptions to be independent. None. Every team in the country has a right to go independent when their grant of rights agreement comes out. All of them. And if those teams chose to go independent, they would have every right in the world to negotiate opportunities to get guarantees into the postseason with the committee. So if Notre Dame, if that were ruled to be passed, they would do what keeps happening, and they would sue, and they would likely win, as always happens whenever collusion tries to be done. So this notion that Notre Dame gets special privileges is one of the laziest things that I've seen. This notion that Notre Dame has this arrogance about them. Let me remind you all again, since some of you don't know this, especially non-Notre Dame fans, Notre Dame tried to join a league 3 times. They tried to join the Big Ten and then what the Big Ten was before, the Western Conference, 3 times. And they were told no. That's when they became the independent team that they were. They wanted to be in a conference, and people said no. Now that they've been dominant over the course of 60, 70, 80 years, and they've become this elite program, and they've built this national following that all the conferences force them to do, you don't then get to say, that's not fair. You're independent. I know you're making less TV money than us, but it's still not fair. I know you played as many Power 4 teams as we did this year, but that's not fair because they're not all from one conference. That's not fair. You should get punished. Well, if you think independent is so easy, then you do it. Because guess how many rules there are that say you can't be independent? None. Why did all the independent teams stop being independent from like 1990 to 1995? Because that's when TV deals became a big deal. That's when TV money dominated the sport. That's the only reason Florida State joined a league. That's the only reason Miami joined a league. That's the only reason West Virginia joined a league. It's the only reason Pitt joined a league. The only reason those teams joined leagues is because they wanted the TV money. There were no rules saying you had to go to a conference. Louisville went to freaking Conference USA at first. They joined the league because they wanted TV money. So now we're going to punish Notre Dame because they built themselves into a big enough brand that they didn't need to go into a conference because you all said they couldn't be in your conference. Screw you if that's how you feel. Grow a pair and be better. Build your brand up. Go travel nationally. Stop playing FCS teams out of conference. And then maybe you can have a brand big enough for Notre Dame to do that, to do what Notre Dame did, if that's what you so choose. But if you're going to come at me, at least know what you're talking about. I know that's a big ask, a real big ask for non-Notre Dame fans. But know what you're talking about first. I'm so tired of people at ESPN. Well, Notre Dame just thinks they're better than everybody else. Yeah, kind of. We kind of are. We kind of are. We may not be better than you on the football field, but we're clearly better than you in the ability for us to get ourselves a TV contract because Texas tried this. How'd that work out? Didn't really work out well for Texas. So they had to sell out a league that they'd been for a long time to go join another league. And I'm supposed to hold that in higher esteem than a team that chooses to take less money to be independent? Think about that. The leagues crying about Notre Dame being independent are leagues that blew up other long-standing leagues for their own greed in TV revenue. And we're going to get mad at the team that takes less TV money to remain independent, a team that scheduled 10 Power 4 opponents this year? 10? How many Power 4 opponents did Alabama play? 9. It wasn't until the SEC game that they even got a 10th Power 4 team. So if you're going to go off on this, well, it's unfair that Notre Dame gets to be independent. Okay, cool. Then maybe you shouldn't have cut them out of your league 3 times when they tried to join, which forced them to build themselves into what they are now. Now you want to get mad about that? Now you want a piece of that pie? At the end of the day, you know why people are really mad that Notre Dame's not in their league? Because they can't profit off Notre Dame the way that they want to. That's the only reason these leagues want Notre Dame in. That's it. That's why I say they hate us because they ain't us. Because if they could, they would. Most of them. Some teams value being in a league. Ohio State values being a part of the Big Ten because that's been in their DNA as long as Notre Dame's been an independent. And so I respect that. But you don't hear people like administrators from Ohio State crying all that much about, why is Notre Dame independent? They play Notre Dame. They're willing to play Notre Dame. If Notre Dame wanted to schedule a 20-year contract with Ohio State would do that right now. That's why I value Ohio State, because they don't cry like a lot of these other people. There's a lot of things I don't like about Ohio State, but I value that. So I get so tired of these lazy tropes about independence and how unfair it is and, go join a league. Why? How'd that work out for BYU? Let's list the playoff teams that are in college football right now. Oregon, is the 5 seed. What conference championship did they play in? Let's see here. Number 6, Ole Miss. What conference championship game did they play in? How about number 7, Texas A&M? How about number 8, Oklahoma? What conference championship game did they play in? How about number 10, Miami? What conference championship game did they play in? I'm just kind of curious about that. So, hey, if it's so easy to be in a conference, guess what? There'd be a lot more teams in a conference that are independent. If it was so easy to not be in a conference and just schedule your way to success, more teams would do it.
Yeah. Salty Virginia peanuts. Is Alabama staying put at number 9 despite the worst loss in SEC championship game history and all other conference championship games, losing teams falling, the most egregious sin in any college football playoff committee's history?
I think what they did to Florida State is still worse. Because I think Florida State, even more than Notre Dame, earned their right to play for a championship, even more than Notre Dame did. They were 12-0, 13-0 that season. I think the process with which Notre Dame got dropped out was worse than the process with which Florida State got dropped out. I do think that. But I think as far as the team that got screwed the most, I have to go Florida State. I mean, that team beat a ranked SEC team, LSU, that everybody thought was going to win that year, 45-24. I think it was it was in Florida. It was a neutral field. That team went on the road and beat Clemson. That team beat Miami. They went on the road and beat Florida. They beat Louisville in a conference championship game, and they got dropped out because their quarterback got hurt. That, I think, is the most egregious sin, because you punish them for nothing they did on the football field. They won 2 games without their starting quarterback. They beat an SEC team and won the ACC and still dropped them. Notre Dame, you can at least point to, you didn't have the head-to-head with you at least had reasons on the field you could justify screwing Notre Dame. Thank you. You had no real justifications for what happened on the field to screw over Florida State, especially when 2 years later you don't punish Ole Miss for not having their head football coach, who, as you pointed out earlier, is also their primary play caller.
Yeah, I mean, Salty, when I look at this, it's kind of a discussion of what's worse, punishing a team for winning their conference or rewarding a team for losing by 21 and an opportunity to win theirs. I think it's split. I mean, honestly, I'm recency biased. I'm probably still leaning more towards Alabama at 9 because, all things considered, 14-point loss in a game that was never competitive in week 1 over a 5-17. You lose by 21 points. And it was quite literally the worst loss in your conference's championship game history. You didn't look good the last month of the season. And you threw out all metrics. All metrics. I think Florida State should have been in 2023. The only thing, and if I can look at this as unbiasedly as possible, at least the committee kind of had some form of, we saw what they looked like without Jordan Travis, and it did look completely different. This one, it's like Alabama was who they were for the last month, and it was bad. Like, I don't care if you beat a bad LSU team without a head coach 20-9. Like, I don't care if it's the Iron Bowl. You look terrible. 20-7 or 27-20. I don't care if at one point you were in the lead, or the rationale behind it of being like, the rationale for leaving Florida State out carried more weight, albeit it was very, very little weight. It carried more weight of like, hey, we watched them play without Jordan Travis and it looked different, versus, yeah, dude, like Alabama they went for it on 4th down and they were up at 17 by 1 point. And it's like, yeah, and then they blew that lead. Like, what are we talking about? They ran the ball with it, ran for 158 yards. Ranked 74th in the country. And so that's where I view some of the differences. They're on the exact same level. I personally am going to give Alabama the edge here, just very slightly. And I think that's just because it's so recent. But the Florida State screw job in 2023 was also really, really bad. And it's really unfortunate that we're talking about how bad something has been in the last 2-3 seasons. That's bad.
Yeah.
Bad regardless.
The reason, and by the way, Blake Ham, I never said that Notre Dame's money they were getting was less competitive. I said it was less That's all I said. I didn't say they weren't competitive with other teams, but Notre Dame gets less money because that's the best deal that they can get for what they're getting. Even with the ACC money, they make less than the Big Ten and the SEC. That's a choice they made. That's how much they value their independence. And people say, oh, you do it for greed. No, that's why all the teams stopped being independent. I just want to make sure that you claim that. And again, you know what? I'm not going to argue them anymore. I'm done with that guy. But the reason that I say it looked different, Trev, but they still went out and beat Florida.
Yeah.
Beat Louisville by 10. A 10-win Louisville team, they beat them with their backup quarterback.
Yeah.
They showed they can win without Jordan Travis. They weren't going to get worse with him. Now, maybe they go out and get beat in the first round anyway. So what? They deserve that opportunity.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think they even have a bigger beef than Notre Dame does. But they're both egregious. Like you said, Trevor, we're sitting there arguing about which team that got screwed over in the last 3 years was worse. You know, it's and that's what frustrates me so much about Miami fans. Because you guys got screwed over last year as well. We said so at the time. We said, why aren't we talking about Miami getting screwed over instead of Alabama and their 3 losses and Ole Miss and their 3 losses, who lost to a 4-8 team and a couple 6-6 teams? Why aren't we talking about a 10-2 team that lost to a 10-win team that's ranked and a pretty good? I mean, Georgia Tech's record wasn't great at 7-5, but look who they lost to: Louisville, SMU, Notre Dame. You know, I mean, Georgia. They lost to 4 playoff teams last year. But that same group of fans, and this is why I say I can't stand fans like that. That same group of fans are just, committee's great because it benefited them this year. Well, if the committee wasn't corrupt, Miami would have been in last year and this year. But I don't think they're smart enough to understand that. That's the problem.
Well, this just goes into the overall mindset. Here's what frustrates me. This is what goes into the overall mindset, separating teams that want to try and compete for championships and teams that are just happy that they got invited to the party. Like, Miami fans should still be upset the fact that Alabama is still ranked over them, in my opinion. Like, why? Why do you have to go on the road to Texas A&M when your matchup should be with Oklahoma? That blows my mind. You lost by 21. Alabama still should have been bumped down a spot. They were literally rewarded for losing by 21 points. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Miami fans should still have a beef, yet they're too nearsighted because they sit there and think it was like, well, at least we got in over Notre Dame, like we've been saying. It's like, but that was never the beef.
That's right.
Like, that was never, ever, 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 ever the beef. We said at the start of the kickoff show at 11:50 when we went live that both Notre Dame and Miami should be in.
We've been saying that for 2 weeks. That's why we said the ACC screwed up and Miami screwed up by going after Notre Dame instead of Miami, instead of Alabama, Oklahoma, and the SEC.
Absolutely wild. There's a reason why Notre Dame had minus 3,500 odds on FanDuel 10 minutes before the show started to make the playoffs. There's a reason for that. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yep. Trev, my screen's going a little bit nuts, so you'll have to pull up the next question.
Yeah, right on. I got you. Got another one in here from our guy, Salty. Who are the top candidates for Michigan's head coaching vacancy, and who would actually be the best choices for it?
It depends on who you talk to. This is why I say you can't put a lot of stock in reports of who, you know, these rumors about coaches. I've seen 5 different in-the-know people give me 5 very different lists in the last 24 hours. I've seen Brian Kelly as a legit candidate, and then I've seen somebody else from the Detroit Free Press was on with, I forget who he's talking to today. And he's talking about how there's some higher-ups that just they're not going to look at Kelly. I don't know which is true. I've heard Kalen DeBoer is going to – it's a lock. He's negotiating already, and I've heard other people say Kalen DeBoer has no interest in the Michigan job. So much of this is about let's get as many clicks as we can and just make up names as early as we can so we can make our money off of it. I've seen Kenny Dillingham. Then you have other influencers in college football. I don't even call them analysts anymore. I call them influencers who are just pushing people that they're buddies with in the profession who let them into the locker room. It's about benefiting themselves more so than giving honest feedback on it. I saw something today from a Michigan newspaper that said Tommy Rees is being vetted for the job. You know, I saw somebody that said Dabo Sweeney was going to, I'm like, Dabo Sweeney is not going to go to Michigan. What are we doing here? You know, I've seen a lot of Jed Fish is another one that I've seen. That one actually would make some sense with his connection. He used to coach at Michigan. Yeah, he's got an NFL background. He did a nice job this year at Washington. I don't know that would like make the boosters happy, but you know that the problem is because they waited until the cycle was over. I think they lost their chance to maybe get some better. I saw one, who was it? Joel Klatt put Marcus Freeman on there. Like, dude, you're just trolling at this point in time. Like, you're not a serious person at this point in time. Marcus Freeman's going to leave to go to Michigan. Are you serious? A team that Notre Dame outbid to keep Chad Bowden 2 years ago? You know, like, come on. Give me a break. I would love it if Michigan hired PJ Fleck, because no, PJ Fleck would not win big at Michigan. But I've seen all types of crazy numbers. Who do I think would be the best guy for the job? That's a very different conversation. And honestly, I don't know that there's a great answer. I don't know that there's a no doubt about it, no-brainer hire that they can make that would go there. I've seen people say Jesse Minter. Like, the problem with Jesse Minter is that would make a lot of sense in a lot of ways, but Jesse Minter was there during a lot of the stuff that's gone on. I mean, they're saying now that this relationship with this assistant has been going on since 2022. Jesse Minter was there during the whole cheating stuff. I'm not saying he partook in it. I have no idea, but he was there. You can't look, trust me, coaches know things that are going on with other coaches. Believe me. So that's going to be a problem in that regard as well. I don't know if Minter still has a show cause or not. I don't know if he was one of the coaches that has that. So I can't speak to that. I just have seen his name get thrown out there. I don't know that makes a lot of sense. To me, Michigan needs to absolutely cut ties with anyone associated in any way, shape, form, or fashion, fair or not, with what happened during the cheating scandal and during the Sherrone Moore tenure. They need, like, you want to go hire a former Michigan assistant, hire somebody from before. And when the new coach comes on, I'm getting rid of any coach that was here during the cheating scandal. So Tony Alford may be safe. A couple other new guys may be safe. But anybody that was there is got to be gone. Who does that leave? I mean, would Kenny Dillingham be a good hire? It'd be risky, but I don't think it'd be a bad hire. He's a good offensive mind. I think players love him. He's had 2 good, successful seasons. He inherited a program that was an absolute mess and quickly turned them around. And I think this year, Trev, showed that last year wasn't a fluke. I know that may sound crazy because they went 8-4, but I think going 8-4 with the wins that they had, I mean, beat Baylor, beat TCU, beat Texas Tech, beat Iowa State on the road. When you consider the injuries they had this year to Jordan Tyson, to Sam Lev, they had a lot of injuries this year and still went 8-4 with some very good wins. Shows you that I think Kenny Dillingham's a really good coach. So while I think that somebody is kind of pushing Kenny Dillingham more of an agenda-related reason, I don't think that would be terrible. There's going to be risk with no matter who you hire. There's risk with PJ Fleck, Brian Kelly, Jesse Minter, Jed Fish, Tommy Rees, Kalen DeBoer. There's risk. There's risk with no matter who you hire. So hire somebody that you think gives you a lot of upside. Hire somebody that you think you might be able to hang on to for a while. Maybe that's Kenny Dillingham. Maybe that's Jed Fish. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I've seen Lincoln Riley's name associated with it. I think that, I think that's an interesting one. I would personally love it if Lincoln Riley went to Michigan. I don't know how well Lincoln Riley would fit at Michigan, but I think that's going to be the interesting thing. And I think the big thing for Michigan is you better hire somebody that's going to be attractive to Bryce Underwood. Because right or wrong, fair or not, whatever, you've hitched your immediate future to Bryce Underwood. So you better hire an offensive-minded coach that Bryce Underwood's going to be like, hey, I want to play for that guy. Because the right coach can still make Bryce Underwood a really good player if he's willing to work at it. I think Sherrone Moore absolutely wasted Bryce Underwood this year. I think there's a reason his best performances were when Biff Poggi was the interim coach and Sharon Moore was out. I don't think that's a coincidence.
I don't either. Definitely don't think it is either. I don't know who this is. I don't have a specific name. You need, in my eyes, an experienced coach to help you navigate these real murky waters. The amount of scandals and arrests and all that stuff that has came out of Ann Arbor in the last 4 years, like you need a veteran coach to help lead you through that. The fact of the matter is, I have no idea what's going to happen to this recruiting class. I have no idea who's going to stay. You need a veteran coach that knows how to build a locker room and keep players together and navigate you through this. Michigan's not competing for a national championship in 2026 with everything that's happened. Just isn't. So you need somebody to help get your feet back under you. I don't know who that is. That's who they need to target, though. So sorry, Salty, I couldn't give you a specific name, but fit-wise, that's kind of what you have to do. Kind of what you have to do. Super chat from Scott Mersinger. Appreciate the super chat, Scott. Sorry if already addressed. I just got on. What is your best case scenario for offensive line next year, both player and coaching personnel?
Well, I mean, I expect Joe Rudolph to be the O-line coach next year. If for some reason he chooses to leave or something comes along those lines, I have heard nothing that that's the case. Then the top guy I would go after is Bob Bostad. I've already said that before. That's a no-brainer for me. But I'm just going to assume that Joe Rudolph's back, and that's what I'm going to do with every position coach until a guy leaves. I'm going to just assume they're back. But I said it earlier, and Scott, you did miss this, so we did say I think the best case scenario in my world is if Ashton Craig is not healthy, I'm going left to right. Will Black. I would even consider flipping the tackles, but I'm going to go Will Black, Billy Schrouth, Anthony Knapp, Charles Jagasaw, and Gerby Lambert, left to right. So left tackle Black, left guard Schrouth, center Knapp, right guard Jagasaw, right tackle would be Gerby Lambert. Now, if Jagasaw is not healthy, then now you're in a little bit of a different situation. Do you leave Lambert at right guard and bring a Matty Augustine along? I don't know that I'd want to have two unproven guys at tackle. Do you just leave Anthony Knapp at left tackle and and put Will Black at right tackle, and then let Joe Otting handle center till Ashton Craig comes back? I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios that are determined by health, but in a perfect world, that'd be my starting five. I think Anthony Knapp would be able to develop it to an elite All-American caliber center. If Anthony Knapp's if Ashton Craig is healthy and able to go next year, obviously that mixes things up a little bit. In that case, I don't know that. I mean, I can tell you all I want what I think they should do, but if that's what I think they should do. Do I think there's any chance in heck of Joe Rudolph moving Anthony Knapp away from left tackle? Very little of it being his decision. If it happens, it's, I think, somebody else making that decision. And it's not because you don't think Anthony Knapp can be a really good left tackle. I think he proved this year he's pretty good left tackle, even as a true sophomore. Yeah. It's A, is it his best position? And B, is him at left tackle allow you to get your best five and the best spots for their potential? I think Anthony Knapp can be a very good left tackle. I predicted him as a preseason All-American this year. I said he was my kind of surprise All-America pick. I'm curious if he's going to get on any of the lists. But I think he could be an elite center or guard. And others have a lot higher potential as left tackles. That's all I've ever said about Anthony Knapp. That's my frustration.
My offensive line is the same as yours. I'm just flipping the tackles. I watched Gerby Lambert take 3 reps at left tackle this season, and he looked like the most natural left tackle.
Yeah, agree. I think Will Black has even more left tackle potential than Gerby Lambert does. Another reason why I want it that way is I want Jagasaw and Lambert side by side.
Sure.
And for the run game. That'd be nasty. When you got a 2-man duo and Jagasaw is your smaller guy.
Yeah. Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, Tyler. Let's say Notre Dame gets in the playoffs and Miami does too, and Alabama gets left out and they opted out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. How would the media handle it?
They would give Alabama a little bit of fluff, a little bit of flack, but they wouldn't hammer them the way that they've hammered Notre Dame. they would point to all the injuries. Oh, they're a banged up team. They've got this guy out, that guy out. I don't like it, but I understand. They would treat them very differently. ESPN has made it very clear that they're going to do whatever they can to prop up the teams that they have contracts with.
I mean, agreed with everything you said. It wouldn't be as negative around Alabama because they shouldn't have been in. That's the whole point. They would have been like, well, I mean, that's when it would have came to light. It was like, Alabama probably wasn't really a playoff team anyways. I get it. Get into the offseason where you're really going to see Jeremy Bernard or Isaiah Horton or Ty Simpson or, and it's some of those guys. Would you have seen some of their D linemen? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. So that's what the conversation would have been around.
It's like Bill Walsh said, that would be a nasty line on the right. Knapp, Jags, Lambert. Exactly. It's exactly my point, dude. Like, we are there, but I mean, and then you got Billy Strout at left guard. There's no doubt. You got your athletes on the left. You got your big power guys on the right. I mean, they're athletic too, but they're big and powerful. That'd be a nasty offensive line. Nasty offensive line. We got a super chat from Patrick Earwood. He put the super chat up and then came with this question later. So thank you for that, Patrick.
Right on. Only can play these rivals forever: USC, Purdue, Michigan State, or Michigan, Stanford, Navy.
Anything with USC is going to be it.
Yep.
Like, look, Trev and I disagree on Michigan, on whether or not we'd play Michigan. Trev wants to play that rivalry. I don't care about that rivalry. So I think his answer even gives you more credence than mine. Mine doesn't carry a lot of weight because, like, well, dude, you don't ever want to play Michigan. So, of course, you want to have that. I've always said I'd much rather play Michigan State than USC. So this is an easy no-brainer for me. The only thing that makes it hard is not having Navy on it.
Navy.
That's the only thing that makes it hard.
Yep.
But with all due respect to Navy, USC is still the bigger rival. And as I've said before, I don't really care at all about playing Michigan. If you could say, Brian, you could play 3 rivals every year, but only 3. I'd go USC, Navy, Michigan State. That would be mine. I know what Trev's would be. But USC, Navy, and Michigan.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and honestly, just to add the little cherry on top, I could care less if Notre Dame ever played Stanford again. Like on an annual basis, like I just don't. It was the rivalry peaked for like 7 years, and then outside of that, it's just been eh. So, yeah, I'm definitely the first option. Anything that,
and you just got punished because you only beat them by 29.
Yeah.
The only way that I would want Stanford back on the schedule every year is if USC bails long term. Now, Pete Bavacqua did talk today on a podcast. I don't know that girl's name that asked him the question, but basically, he said that they're close to an agreement for a short-term extension. After that, it remains to be seen.
Okay.
So we'll see. It looks like if you had to guess, I'd probably say that Notre Dame caves in the short term and plays them earlier and then holds out to change the long-term partnership. Which, if you got to cave for a year or 2 to get what you want long-term, as long as they get what they want long-term, it's like, well, we're going to cave now, but that means you're going to play us at the end of the year every year. And I think for Notre Dame, getting USC at the end of the year every year is even more important after what happened to them this year. If you're Notre Dame and your takeaway for what just happened to you isn't, we are putting USC at the back of our schedule every year, or they're not going to come, or we're okay with this rivalry dying, then I think you're taking a lot of the wrong lessons from this. And I'm worried that Notre Dame's taking some of the wrong lessons, like this thing about getting it off TV. That's an emotional reaction. No, you want the transparency. Notre Dame doesn't want the weekly reveals. Just give us the thing at the end of the year. I think that's silly and short-sighted. What we should have is do the reveals. That is good for the game. It's good for the sport. It's an entertainment. That's entertainment. But demand transparency. Give us the data, publish the updated data every week, and tell us who's voting for who. That's what we should have. That's what it should be. And do that, and then I'm okay. You could have a playoff thing every freaking week for all I care. I want transparency. I think that taking it off TV every week creates more opportunity for fraud and deceit, because now they can just sit back and maneuver things however the heck they want, and they can just put whoever they want in that final top 25 ranking. Well, hold on. This team hasn't been ranked for 4 weeks, and now they're jumping into the back of your top 25 team to prop up this team over here? That doesn't make any sense. Like randomly putting Arizona in the top 25 at the end of the year to prop up BYU? That was weird. You know, not putting Navy, even though the AP and the coaches have Navy like 21, 22, you don't put Navy in there. Why? Because that helps us with our desire to keep Notre Dame out. If you put a second top 25 win in there for Notre Dame, now there's even less reason to drop Notre Dame out. You only can do that once, and there's no call out for that. There's no that creates that makes a bad system worse, in my opinion. Demand transparency. Tell us what your data is. Release the data every week. That should be part of the press release that you send out on top of the transcript. Here's what we said, and get rid of the stupid interviews with the committee chair. We don't need that. Give us your ranking. Here's what we've decided. Have transparency about who votes for who, and then give us the data. What's the data you look at? Stand by that data. Put that data out there. That's what we need.
Getting into the second part of the Friday free-for-all mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We got a super chat to get us kicked off here in the next part from our guy Sean T. Appreciate the super chat, Sean. Any reflection from signees, future recruits on bowl declination? Positive, happy program will stick up for them to not play in meaningless bowl games. Negative, think it's soft or they don't care.
I don't think most really care that much. The feedback that we have gotten so far, Sean Davis, myself, is that I think the commits kind of are adopting the same mentality as the players did. We got screwed, so screw them. And, Sean Davis and I were talking the other day, and he was like, from him talking to recruits, he's like, he sees Notre Dame as kind of becoming a little bit of the renegade program, and there's a lot of kids kind of like that. I've said this before. A lot of recruits like that. Oh, this is the team everybody hate on? Cool. I want to play for them. You're seeing more of that. This is going to – I'm telling you, the screwing over Notre Dame is going to come back to bite them big time if Notre Dame handles this the right way. Let's go back up to the top and got that one. And we've got a recruiting question here from Coleman, so we'll go to that one.
Who are the safety targets in 2027? I know we're recruiting a bunch of corners. The only safety I know of is Gavin Williams.
Well, obviously Khalil Terry, who's already committed, is a safety target. He's one. Gavin Williams is another. Tavares Harrington is a guy that Notre Dame is looking at as a corner safety kind of hybrid guy. Jalen Hill is a little bit of a corner safety hybrid guy. I know they are still talking a little bit to Kamari Dorsey. They're trying to talk to him. Gavin Williams is a big one for Notre Dame. And then I think they also view Xavier Hassan as sort of a hybrid guy. He's a cornerback, but could also play safety. So I think right now the goal is to really focus and push hard on Gavin Williams. And I think there's some other guys that right now are listed as corners that I think the staff views as more as safety. So I think that's, as best I can figure, I think that's where the list is right now. There's a couple other guys they're trying to get in on, but so far they're not really in with those guys. But those are really so far, Coleman, the names that I'm comfortable saying Notre Dame is in the mix with at this point in time.
From Salty, how much did Brett Yormark clown himself by railing against egregious Pete Bravacqua about Notre Dame declining a bowl game with BYU, and can he spell egregious?
No. He big time clowned himself. He's playing to the audience. He's playing to, that's the cool thing. That's what people want to see. Those are things that I think that's who he is. He's weak. I'm not a big Brett Yormark fan. I wasn't before. I'm even less so now. I'd say it to Pete if he was here. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Stop it. Don't lie. It's childishness. And then in the same breath, this is what shows he's a clown. His comments about Notre Dame aren't what make him a clown. That's not even what bothers me. You know what the most egregious, like that bothers me strictly from a Notre Dame fan standpoint. But as someone who loves the game, the dumbest thing he said is that the committee was right to leave out Texas or BYU. That's the dumbest thing he said. Hold on a second. You're not fighting for BYU, who had more quality wins than Alabama and Oklahoma, who had the same number of top 25 wins as Alabama, whose only loss was to the number 4 team in the country twice. You're just going to give in and say they made the right decision? Are you serious? Like, that was even the dumber than what he said about Notre Dame. That to me showed, he clowned himself even more than what he said about Notre Dame. You didn't even fight for your own team, who I think got screwed in this whole process. How's an 11-1 BYU team that's got better quality wins, same number of top 25 wins as Alabama, same number of losses as Alabama in as far as in their league, but doesn't have a loss to a 5-7 team in the non-conference? How are they out? Well, the metrics. Oh, so we're looking at the metrics now when we're evaluating BYU, but we're not looking at the metrics when we're evaluating Oklahoma and Alabama? Got it.
All of it goes to show me, what that tells me is the fact that it isn't just fan bases, unfortunately, that are still like, well, it's Bama. Shows me that other leadership is in conferences, other athletic directors, other coaches, they'll throw a hissy fit about Notre Dame because they're in the denial about the fact that Notre Dame is an elite program right now.
Yeah. But
they're still living off the fact that this is 2018, 2009 to 2020 Alabama.
Yeah.
And that's where they're at. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely hilarious. I mean, it just shows you how much of a coward you are. I think that Ballpeen Shillelagh said it right. Dude basically said to the networks and committee, look at me, I'm a good boy. Be nice to us next year, please. 100% correct.
Yep.
100%. Let's get to somebody we haven't thought yet. Connor Fitch, we talked about the Michigan stuff already as far as who the next coach is. Regarding what's going on with Sharon Moore, I think the way that, first of all, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Number one is Sharon Moore clearly has some mental issues, and I'm not saying that to make a joke. I'm not saying that to take a shot, to be petty. I mean, the things he's done in response to what's happened, this is a guy that's got some issues, like some legitimate issues. And I'm talking about the morality of the decisions he made, which I clearly have a problem with. I have said this all along. If you can't be faithful to your wife, I can't trust you for anything. If you can't be loyal to her, you can't be loyal to me. You know what I mean? Or my child, if I was a parent sending them there. I know that a lot of our society doesn't view it that way. I absolutely view it that way. But beyond that, he's got some serious issues and he just ruined his life. And that's not something that I'm willing to make jokes about. Like he put himself in this situation. I get that. But I'm not someone who takes joy in someone destroying their life. No matter what I might think of him, his morality, and I don't think very much of Sharon Moore and his morality before all this thing happened, that guy just put a nuke to his life. And not even just the affair, you could come back from that. There's no coming back from what followed. You know what I mean? Like, had an affair, he's scumbag. There's a lot of coaches who are scumbags and people don't care if you can win. He'd have got another job. He would have had a chance to work himself back up to be a head coach someday. What happened afterwards, though, he nuked his life. I mean, he'll never, in my opinion, coach again. And that's not something that I just, just brush off and turn into a joke. With Michigan as an institution, I mean, if there's not a better example of lack of institutional control than what's happened in Michigan the last 5 years, I don't know what is. I mean, think about not just, okay, there's the cheating scandal. That's one thing with Connor Stallions. That's one thing, right? Even if you take that, they've had 5 different coaches arrested in the last 4 or 5 years for DUI. They had a coach got arrested because the federal government got involved because he was hacking people's computers and stuff and stealing stuff. Like, think of all the things that have gone on at Michigan. Now you've got this situation where the head coach gets fired for what he got fired for, then gets arrested. Like, something happened similar like that happened with Corbin Brown. Remember that? When he got in some trouble, when his life went down the you-know-what. But, man, like, this keeps happening at one place. That's not good. That's not good at all. There are some serious problems at Michigan, and none of the leadership is going to pay the price for this. I don't know how Ward Manuel has a job. I really don't.
The most upsetting part about that whole thing that I continue to think about is the fact, I mean, he had 3 daughters. I mean, the collateral in these decisions is just absolutely crazy. So my heart goes out to them. Thoughts and prayers go out to them because that's just absolutely insane. And you never want that to happen. I learned everything I needed to. If it is true, because I'm not going to sit here and say that it is, it's just there has been a lot of things flying around. If it is true that Michigan got wind of this before all of this news broke and waited until after National Signing Day, that tells me everything that I need to know about Michigan as a program and as an institution. You're going to wait for 17 and 18-year-olds to sign on the dotted line to commit to come to Michigan when you know all the shady stuff that's going on behind closed doors. You're going to wait for all that to happen? Yeah, that tells me everything I need to know. Really doesn't tell me anything. It just confirms a lot of what I already think about that place. But that is atrocious. If that is actually true, and they learned about all this prior to National Signing Day, but they didn't want it getting out so they could get a good recruiting class. Yeah, that tells me everything I need to know. But point being, thoughts and prayers go out to the daughters of the Moore family, because that's rough.
Can I tell you how disgusted I am by how many media people that said they knew about this a while ago and never did anything with it? I'm not saying you report something that you heard from someone, but you don't do any kind of research. You don't get this to a real journalist's hand, say, you need to dig into this. Where's journalism gone in our country? Seriously. In Michigan, well, we asked them about it and they said no. I didn't realize it was that easy. I mean, I didn't know if I got pulled over for speeding. It's like, I wasn't speeding. Oh, shoot. You won't admit to speeding? Well, I guess I can't give you a ticket then. My bad. So, yeah. Yeah. Not good.
From Muhammad Abdi, Brian, do you think any schedule agreement, if Notre Dame leaves ACC for Big Ten or SEC, will be made easier if automatic qualifiers is introduced in a 16-team format, making teams schedule Notre Dame by being an out-of-conference game?
I mean, I don't know. I don't love the idea of automatic qualifiers. I think that if there are, I think what's happening right now with schedules is the conferences kind of like going towards that. I think they know they're going to go towards X number of automatic qualifiers, which means your non-conference is irrelevant. It's now about you just got to finish in the top 4 of your league. I think that's horrible for the game. And I think the fact, and actually, sadly, one of the few people fighting against that right now is Greg Sankey. He wants 5 plus 11. That's what he wants. But I think there's going to be a compromise. I don't think Tony Petitti's just going to give in to what Greg Sankey wants. There's going to be some sort of compromise. Maybe it's not 4. Sadly, I think they go to 16 teams, and I think you'll probably see multiple automatic bids in those leagues, which I think is kind of gross, to be completely honest with you. And that's going to only make it more and more for teams to say, well, we're not going to play anybody out of conference. Sadly, I think that's what's going to happen. And by rule, they only have to play one. By rule, SEC teams have to play one Power 4 team or Notre Dame out of conference.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, what the committee is doing and what people are fighting for is going to give less incentive to play good non-conference games, which does not help the sport at all. It's just sad how there's such a lack of leadership in college football right now for people who just have no value for the game, and it's all about money, 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 that don't have the foresight to say the money will dry up if the game starts to suck. How many coaches have you heard in the last couple of years whine about not having enough people in stands at games? You're hearing more and more and more of that. Why?
Yeah.
You're going to pay $100 to come watch you play, Savannah State, East Texas A&M? No. I'll do something else with my time.
From Jordan Schreiber, why do you think Freeman and Denbrock allow nonsense like moving 5-star left tackles to guard on day one? Why is Rudolph allowed to continue nonsense, even as Rudolph was forced to start Rocco against Will?
Man, I think you're making that a little bit strong, forcing it against his will. I don't think that's exactly. It's not like they threatened him with life and limb in his job if he didn't move that. It was like, look, this is what we want. Okay, coach, I'll go get it done. That's what coaching. That's what happens. To answer your question, I don't know why they allow that, other than the fact that only thing that I can gather is they agree with it. Because here's my thing: when people above you allow you to do something, it means they agree with it, which is disappointing.
Yeah,
but yeah. Say, well, they ended up making them change. Okay, cool, but then we're back at it again the next year.
Yep.
So.
The changes can't continue to come around by unforeseen issues like injuries. We said this, Brian, we got pretty passionate about this on Sunday, talking about, look, if you're going to find a way to be better in September, you can't wait for injuries to force your hand to put the best 5 out there. Just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line is included in that conversation.
Yep.
From ND, it just means more. What would be your preferred 11 starters on offense and defense going into next year? Include potential portal targets you would go after.
I mean, there's so many guys that are going to be in the portal that aren't even in the portal right now. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with your question. It's just other than timing, it's too early for that. In order for me to give my opinion on this, I either have to pretend that guys that I know are going to jump in the portal are going to jump in the portal, or say it, which I'm not going to do. The only reason we've been kind of open about the potential Emil Wagner situation is because the AD said it already, basically. And I just don't want to get into that. I would love it if, like, maybe in a couple weeks this question got asked, I'd be in a better position to say it. The best that I could give you is, like, again, I can't even, because there are guys I'm not sure if they're going to come back or not. I'm not sure if certain guys are going to go pro, and some guys are going to consider going to the portal. Who's Notre Dame going to kind of let walk? Who are they going to sign? There's just so much uncertainty now. It used to be, honestly, 2 years ago, right after the season, I could tell you this is pretty much what I think the starting lineup is going to be. And then we could say, okay, but there's going to be a battle for this position, but other than that, this is most likely what the starting lineup is going to be. Now it's like, dude, I don't even know what the roster is going to look like next year. I don't know who's jumping in the portal. I don't know who's going to go pro. I don't know who they're going to. I can't tell you.
Well, and some of it comes down to the abrupt end of the season. We would have a better idea if it was just a bowl game and, players opt out for bowls or do this. Or, the abrupt end of the season, Brian, to your point, also doesn't help the fact that, even in more traditional years that Notre Dame wasn't even going to make the playoffs, we're still not having this conversation for about a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Another one from Salty. No worries. Another one from Salty. On balance, has Notre Dame made a positive or negative impression on average, not highly engaged college football fans this past week, or does it matter?
Negative, and I don't think it matters, because I don't think Notre Dame cares about not highly engaged casual college football fans. They're not doing this to win a PR battle. They're doing this to hopefully to position themselves to bring about change. If all this is just a PR battle and that's all we get from Notre Dame, then they have failed this miserably. If they're not going to actually do anything to fix all this, they're going to keep playing with the ACC, be okay with Jim Phillips being the commissioner, not make any pushback. Then you should have just shut your mouth and taken it and played in the freaking bowl game. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not going to do anything about this, then all you do is you do look like a bunch of whiners. I'm fine with what Notre Dame's doing right now because I'm assuming that they're setting themselves up for action that will follow later. So if we don't get that, then you just look like a bunch of crybabies.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, Salty, it is vast majority negative because the people that just kind of wake up every day and just hate Notre Dame for reasons that they don't understand outside of the fact that their parents hated Notre Dame and the parents before them hated Notre Dame. Now they just have really, really shallow reasoning to dig on Notre Dame. But I'm with Brian. As long as action follows, I'm cool with everything that's happened up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Somebody in the chat said something that, and I think people, again, it's an example. I think people don't take the right lessons. People said, well, viewership is way up. I don't know about way up. It's up. There's a lot of other factors that go into that. Part of it is not as many people go to games anymore. Just because viewership is up now doesn't mean that it's going to stay up.
Yeah.
Because right now, things are a certain way. But here's the deal. Right now, viewership is up because of exactly like what we said in the show the other day. Why does the SEC, why does ESPN basically cheat for the SEC? Because they have a deal with the SEC. But why do they have such a big deal with the SEC? Because that's the biggest chunk of fan base in college football. Eventually, you're going to alienate everybody else where they're just going to kind of stop caring as much. And people are just going to go back to the NFL. Like, if the game doesn't get any better, it's like, well, dude, I'm just going to start watching the NFL again. Or only watch NFL. If I have to deal with my team losing top players every year for this and holdouts and doing all this other crap, that's part of the reason I didn't like watching the NFL. Is I don't like the business aspect of it. And if this is all we got, and it's even dirtier and it's more of the Wild West, then eventually you start to lose your love for the game. So just saying, oh, numbers are up now is very short-sighted because the impact doesn't come immediately. It comes later. As other point out, there's also the gambling aspect to it. There's a lot of people that watch because of gambling, but you look at trends for attendance. That's something to keep an eye on. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why viewership is up. That doesn't mean that the stability of the sport is up. If gambling got taken away, that's a great point by Raymond. If gambling got taken away, then you'd see things change quite a bit in viewership.
Yeah.
And his response is, people have been saying that ever since players started holding out from bowl games, but people are still watching. People don't watch bowl games anymore. People aren't still watching. People don't watch bowl games anymore. Viewership for the smaller bowl games is not what it used to be because that's all that impacted. Now we're going to start seeing things impact the regular season. Again, you're being very short-sighted here. You're assuming that because A, B happened, that means the C is going to happen, and that's not accurate. That's why you've seen other sports make the mistakes that they made because they say, well, numbers are here, so we can just go ahead and do this. And eventually the audience is going to be like, screw this. You know? And sadly, in some sports, they'll continue to screw up and people keep watching. It's happened in the NFL. It's unfortunate, but it's going to change in college football. You start getting rid of the rivalries. You can eventually chip away enough to where the infrastructure is not as strong, and eventually it's going to go down.
Yeah.
Let's get to some more questions here. Let's see here. Okay, here's another one from Mohammed.
Brian, looking at the 2026 schedule, do you think Notre Dame will probably have to be 11-1? And do you think having two toughest games later in the season helps compared to last year?
I think so. I mean, look, the narrative about Notre Dame's 26 schedule is incredibly annoying because my answer to whether or not they have to be 11-1 is going to be the same as this year. Well, you got to give me some context because here's the thing: 10-2. If this 10-2 Notre Dame team was 10-2 last year, they're in the playoffs because they're matched up against teams that were 3-loss teams in the regular season. You know what I mean? Like if this Alabama team if this season for Alabama was what they did in 2024, they'd have made the playoffs. If last year's Alabama team was in the conversation this year, they're not even 11th. They're even lower than 11th. There's context. I had some Miami fans say, well, we were still ranked 12th last year, blah, blah. I said, yeah, because you were going up against a bunch of 3-loss teams with terrible losses. It's not compared to where you were last year. It's compared to where you were here. Notre Dame's 11-1 team from last year has them exactly where they were last year. 5 that last year, I think they'd be 5 this year if they were 11-1. But if you take Notre Dame and be 10-2 last year, take this type of schedule and make them 10-2 last year, they're in the playoff, in my opinion. So maybe hosting. I mean, maybe. So it just depends on what else we see. I also think this narrative about how weak Notre Dame's schedule is next year, compared to what? Compared to this year? I mean, I think USC is going to continue to be good. I think Miami's going to continue to be good. I mean, is there as good of a 1-2 punch as there was this year? Maybe. Depends on how good USC is. I mean, the best team on their schedule this year went 8-5 last year. I mean, is SMU going to look like this year's version of SMU or last year's version of SMU? Is Wisconsin going to continue how well they played down the stretch into the season? I don't know the answer to that. A lot of people don't know the answer to that. I don't think this year's schedule was great, and I don't think next year's schedule is necessarily worse. Whether or not they get into 11-1 compared to 10-2, that all depends on what happens to college football. If it's a year like last year, then 10-2 probably still gets them in. If it's a year like this year, then I don't think 10-2 gets them in. But the other part is I don't even know how to answer the question as well anymore, because I could say, well, as long as they beat the 2 best teams they play and have a couple mediocre losses, they should be okay, because that's the precedent they set with Alabama and Miami. But I don't know that that's going to be true, because what they showed this year more than anything, Trevor, is they will apply the criteria to fit whatever narrative they want, or whatever. They start with a result and then find criteria to fit that result. That's what happened this year. So even then I can't tell you. But if Notre Dame's 11-1, they won't ever be left out of the playoffs. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I was just
they wouldn't have been left out this year.
No, they wouldn't have. I mean, look, here's the issue that's so hard about this, Muhammad, and this is not an issue with your question. It's a very valid question. But what the committee showed us this year is that it just doesn't matter. I mean, Notre Dame had 2 very quality losses. BYU had 2 quality losses. They're chilling on the sidelines, watching the playoffs from the couch. Alabama and Miami had probably 3 of the worst losses amongst the playoff field, if you think about it. A 5-7 loss for Florida State for Alabama, 2 unranked losses for Miami. They were the only team ranked in the top 25 with 2 unranked losses. They made the playoffs. So it's just, I wish I could tell you. I mean, I would say it depends on who you lost to. I mean, in a season where I watched Notre Dame lose to Northern Illinois, they made the playoffs. And then in a season where I watched them lose to 2 playoff teams, they didn't make the playoffs. Like, it's just
by 4 points at the end of both games.
Yeah. I mean, they lost to Texas A&M in a closer margin than they lost to Northern Illinois and didn't make the playoffs. So again, not all playoffs are created equal. That's what makes this so difficult, but that's what made us so frustrated on Sunday, because there is no consistent criteria applied to who makes it and who doesn't. It's just, Brian, you said it perfectly earlier this week. Everything was about the data, and everything was about proper evaluation of the team up until when? Sunday, when it was we felt, we feel. And it's like, okay, well, then if that's what it's going to come down to, I wish I could tell you, Muhammad, if they beat all these teams but only lose to this team, they'll get in. But to Brian's point, if they're 11-1, they're making the playoffs. God, Country, Notre Dame, Barbecue. Any intel on how the team is taking all of this? Obviously disappointed, but I feel depending on the response, 2026 goes really good for Notre Dame or bad. Not much in between.
I actually kind of agree with that, Trevor.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're all assuming that this team is going to handle this really well and dominate next year. There's another world in which they don't handle this well. They become jaded. Well, the system is screwed. So since the system is screwed, I'm just going to go focus on me getting mine. There's a world in which that happens. I really hope it doesn't, but there is. And if that happens, this team won't handle it very well. And that's troubling for me. I don't think that's going to happen, but I also didn't think they were going to go 4-8 in 2016 either. So, I don't know. I think right now the staff is just kind of giving them time. I think that's the focus now. Whether or not that holds, we'll see. But I think that's the focus right now. Just give them time.
That's when I think that the decision to sit out of the bowl game, and Pete Mavakwa talked about this, about just letting them go be students for a little while, go enjoy the holidays with your family, get through finals. We're going to do some events as a team. I think that's going to work in a positive light, because I think if they would have went and played in the bowl game, the answer would have been like, okay, so we can get absolutely snubbed, but we still got to lace it up and go play for something that doesn't really mean a whole lot. And so that's when I think that it could be a major benefit. But we are also not naive to the fact that it could go the opposite way. We're going to find out a lot about Marcus Freeman and the player-led leadership on this team, because here's the benefit. 5 of your 6 team captains from this season have the opportunity to be on the team next year. We're going to get an idea of player-led leadership and the coaching leadership and the type of guys that Marcus Freeman is bringing in. I feel pretty confident in saying that it is going to go the way that we think. Revenge tour, they're going to be, out for blood, all that stuff. But it's not a 100% certainty. Nothing in college football, if we've learned anything from this past season, nothing is 100% certain.
Not at all.
From Jordan Schreiber, is Teddy Girard a 5-star like talent? He doesn't seem to be close to CJ or Dante to me. Why has Notre Dame failed to recruit these 5-star quarterbacks since CJ?
Jordan, I love you, man, but you tend to look at everything like this black and white thing. Number one is CJ just played his redshirt freshman year. Notre Dame has signed 2 top 150 caliber quarterbacks since then. You're not going to sign 5-star kids every year. You're just not. And do I think Teddy has 5-star talent? Yeah, he's got 5-star upside for sure. I think they've done very well recruiting quarterback. A lot of teams have failed to sign 5-star quarterbacks since they landed a guy 2 years ago. Notre quarterback recruiting is not even remotely in my radar of issues that I have right now with recruiting. So, I mean, look, if Blake Hebert, Noah Grubbs, and Teddy Girard in 3 straight classes is enough for you to be pretty darn good at quarterback, then I think you probably have a bigger problem than recruiting. You probably have a development problem. I'm quite happy. Teddy Girard was the one quarterback that Notre Dame was one of 2 quarterbacks they went after in this class that they viewed as the best of the best. He's, as far as his ranking, it depends on who you look at. I mean, he's ranked as a top 50 guy, was a top 50 guy when he committed to Notre Dame. He's fallen a little bit now, but that kind of has happened every time Notre Dame has signed a quarterback. He drops in the rankings with On 3. Say whatever you want. That's kind of hard to ignore. So I'm not concerned about quarterback recruiting right now. Just not.
Another one from God Country, Notre Dame and Barbecue. Recruits from the 2026 class that will make an immediate impact in 2026.
So I don't know who will yet, but here's the guys that I think have a chance to help as freshmen. Both running backs, Javian Osborne and Jonas Walton. I think one of them at least will have a shot to become that guy. I think Caden Finley, for sure, at wide receiver has a chance to help as a freshman. I'd also probably put Bubba Frazier in the conversation as well. I think he'll have a shot. I wouldn't be shocked if Braden Robinson is a guy that gets a look as a freshman in the return game. Same with Bubba. I think they both could help out as freshmen on special teams. I think Ian Premer definitely has a great shot to play as a freshman, even though he's not an early enrollee. I think he's got a great shot to be that. Offensive line-wise, I don't know that any of them are guys that I see making an impact as a freshman. Defensive line wise, I could absolutely see both defensive ends finding a role. I mean, if Logan Thomas had a role as a pass rusher in 2024, I could see Ebenezer Utade earning that role in 2026. I could see Rodney Dunham as long as his rehab continues to go well. I mean, I'm shocked he played all year, and he's going to only be better athletically next year that he's now 2 years removed from the injury. I could see him having a Bryce Young type of freshman season snaps wise. I could see him getting kind of that role. But again, a lot of this is going to depend on, like I'm saying, I could see that. I'll have a more definitive answers once I know who's coming and going, right? I mean, I could say, well, I don't know if either one of those guys are going to have a tough time getting on the depth chart. And then all of a sudden, this guy leaves, this guy leaves, this guy leaves, and this guy leaves. You're like, well, they're going to play Rodney Dunham. Inside wise, I could see Tiki Hola maybe making an impact as a freshman. He's still young. He's only 16 years old, but he's really good. Linebacker wise, I don't see any of those guys making an impact as freshmen unless it's on special teams. Secondary wise, I think I could see Kari Adams playing as a freshman. I could see Aiden Pouncey playing as a freshman. I could see Joey O'Brien playing as a freshman. I think all those guys will have a shot to play as freshmen. It's a very impressive group. In past years, the list would be even bigger. I mean, in past years, all 4 defensive linemen would have a shot to play as freshmen.
Honestly.
And depending on what kind of offseason Elijah Golden has in the weight room and strength program and nutrition program and all that, because I believe Elijah Golden's going to be an early enrollee. And if he's an early enrollee, if he takes well to the weight room and the nutrition room, he could be a guy that jumps in and could be a factor as a freshman. Did you see him in the state title game? Whew. He's really good. He's really good. Yeah. I think this is a fair question to address.
From Jordan Schreiber, why have you distanced yourself from recruiting compared to 2020 through 2023? I used to know so much about every recruit on the board. I miss it.
It's a very fair question, Jordan. There's most of it's business reasons. One of the things I do is, Irish Breakdown's a business. And as the business owner, I have to say, are we committing our resources to the things that are making us profitable so I can still pay my team, still pay myself, still pay our bills, and do all those type of things. And, Trevor knows how much I spent just to send him out to the one game that I sent him out to, right? Those aren't cheap trips, right? And that's a business expense. And so what I had to do is when I hired Ryan, for example, I tracked, how much am I paying Ryan compared to how much recruiting articles and recruiting shows and things like that were making us. And the reality is we were losing money. And that wasn't because Ryan wasn't doing a good job. It was because as recruiting has changed, the amount of clicks that recruiting articles would get and the amount of recruiting shows would get goes down and down and down. And there's a lot of people, and this is myself included, just don't care as much about the day-to-day recruiting because of how much we've invested in players in the past. And then to have those guys do some of the things that they've done in recent years. Now, this class was obviously different, but I think that's caused a lot of people to check out from recruiting. And I know that there's still people that love it, and I get all that. But at the end of the day, if I felt like hiring someone and paying them a full-time salary and doing all that to cover recruiting on a day-to-day basis would be profitable, I'd do it. But at the end of the day, I can only right now afford one full-time person to write and do all the things that we do. And it just made more sense to do team-related stuff because the team-related stuff just makes us, more money. More people want to watch it. The people that love recruiting are very dedicated to loving recruiting, but that number has just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk because of just the way the game has changed. And I think more and more people are totally okay. Just talk to me about the film, and the other thing too is the kids committed in June, July, and August, and the class has been over. There just hasn't been a whole lot to talk about. And so perhaps someday down the road that'll change. But for right now, I just had to make a business decision. And I think this made more sense for me. Just looking at the numbers, it just made more sense. And so do I think this is permanent? No, it's not permanent. As we grow and we get to a point where I can add an additional hire, that additional hire would be someone who would first and foremost do recruiting. That is a plan that I have down the road, but it just has to make business sense. And right now, that's just not where I'm at. If the right person presented themselves, probably try to make it work, but we're just not there right now. So, and just what the numbers are. I mean, like this one right here, DK, my interest in recruiting is way, way down. And you're not alone. And that's a lot of people. And again, it's just looking at the numbers. Like, I don't think the job Ryan did in 23 was worse than the job Ryan did in 22. I think Ryan did good work both years. But the numbers of the stuff we were putting out was just going way down. So, yeah, Coleman, shoot me an email, dude. We'll talk. I mean, I'm open to some things, but it's just like covering recruiting requires a full-time commitment to doing it if you're going to do it right. That's the thing. So I've had people ask this before, but as far as my recruiting analysis, I mean, we do that. That's still there. I mean, I've got to get my updated grades, but I did grades of the classes. I broke down every player. I have commit profiles for every player. It's just there hasn't been anything new to put out lately. So I'm going to get I did the offensive grades and rankings, but with everything went on with the playoffs, I just haven't been able to get to the defensive one. I'll have that up this weekend, and then I'll have the whole class regraded, re-ranked, and then next week I'm going to put out the class of 2027 commitment rankings and grades and evals. So, I mean, we do all those things. We've had commitment videos for most of the kids that have committed. We did one for the kid they landed the other day. Obviously, the cornerback, Ace Alston. We did one for Amari Irvin. So we still do those things, but we just don't do the day-to-day type of recruiting, the intel, things like that as much. Because the other thing, too, is I'd put intel out, and it's accurate intel. It's very well-sourced intel. But then if it ends up not panning out, then I got to deal with people, giving me crap for, well, you said this, you said that. So I'm just like, fine, screw it. If that's how you're going to be, if you don't know that intel changes and things change, or, hey, if I'm going to give you an opinion or prediction and it doesn't go right, and then you're going to come at me and say that hurts my credibility, then okay, fine, then I just won't do it anymore. And I'll just break down players and go about it that way. So there's a lot of things that went into that. And trust me, anything that you're suggesting, I promise you I've already thought of. And it just doesn't make sense. So I wanted to bring that up because I have had people ask that before, and I felt it was a good thing to respond to. So thank you for that, Jordan.
From Aiden Benami, BD, why can offensive linemen point at blitzers, etc., arm movement, and not false start, but they can barely move and it gets called a false start?
It's a great question, because the pointing and stuff is not any sort of action geared towards a simulation of sort of an advancement of the play, right? So like a center can lean back and point to a guy, but he can't in any way go forward and flinch or do anything that looks like it might be a simulated snap. Just like an offensive lineman can't do anything that simulates him coming out of his stance or going back out of his stance. The pointing and stuff like that, that's just natural pre-snap movement. Just like a receiver can do this, but once a guy gets set, he kind of has to stay in that position. He can't do anything forward. He can point to that like a blitzer, but if he leans forward and points to that blitzer, that's a false start. Just like defensive linemen can't go forward and simulate they're coming, and if the fault causes the offensive lineman to move, then that's a penalty on the defense. So it just can't be anything that simulates I'm advancing the play. I'm coming out of my stance to my post-snap action, so to speak. That's why. It's a good question. I've never had anybody ask that before, but that's a good question.
Yeah.
Here's another one for my dad.
How good of a coach is Max Bullen now that he has departed? I know just a linebackers coach, but he seemed to be a perfect coach and a foxhole guy.
Well, I mean, I don't think my opinion of him as a coach has changed now that he's departed. I mean, my opinion of him as a coach is the same now as it was before he left.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's still a young coach, and there's always things that, when you're in your 20s and early 30s, you're always going to be you're usually going to be a better coach in your 40s, right? I mean, we all get better. But, I mean, I think very highly of the job Max Bull has done. And, I mean, I remember being told a story about how he went to Drake Bowen before Drake's sophomore year. If you remember, Drake was still playing baseball at the time, or was it his freshman year? But Max Bull had this, really long plan laid out for how Drake can handle playing both sports and still improve himself as a football player. You don't see that from a lot of GAs. He was a GA at the time. And the fact that Marcus Freeman and Al Golden, two guys who know a lot about linebackers, thought so highly of him that said, hey, let's make this guy a full-time guy. He worked under Nick Saban. He worked under Mark D'Antonio, or played under Mark D'Antonio and Pat Narduzzi. And as much as I dislike Pat Narduzzi, guy was a very good defensive coordinator at Michigan State for a long time. Guy knows what he's doing. The players like him. The players respect him. He knows how to teach the game. He knows how to teach good technique. His guys play hard. So I think he's a heck of a coach. He's a solid recruiter. I mean, he's a good – I think the linebacker recruiting has as much to do with Marcus Freeman as anything. But Max did a good job. I think that's a part of his game that's got to continue to evolve and get better. But you even saw it improving as tenure at Notre Dame. It's definitely a loss. Who are they going to get to replace him? I don't know. That's one position where I do have a little bit of I trust Marcus Freeman kind of thing, because he's made good linebacker hires so far, and that's kind of his baby. As far as he knows that position, he'll be able to interview someone and have a lot better say, like, what questions to ask and what a guy knows than maybe if he's interviewing an offensive line coach. So I have a little faith that they're going to be able to find someone good, whether that's a former Notre Dame player like a lot of people want. That happens every time there's an opening. People start looking, what former Notre Dame players are coaching, and whether it's a Greer Martini or Nick Lazinski or something like that, or if it's somebody who didn't play Notre Dame. I don't really care. You just want to hire someone that's a great teacher, a great developer, and a great recruiter. And I think Max was very good at those first two things, and he has potential in the third area to be really good in time. And I think he'll recruit even better at Michigan State, because he knows that place pretty good since it's his alma mater. So I think that was a great hire by Pat Fitzgerald. I love the job that Max Bulla did, but I think we all knew that Max Bulla wasn't going to be at Notre Dame very long. You don't see young up-and-coming studs like that stay at one place as assistants for 10 years. It just unfortunately doesn't happen.
Right.
Without some sort of promotion.
From Ballpeen Shillelagh, if not asked already, could you see Freeman and the staff actually playing Joey O'Brien two ways? And if so, would he have the potential to be a Travis Hunter type of player with Heisman potential?
I mean, sure, he's a five-star player. I don't know that they're going to do that right away. I wouldn't do that as a freshman. I don't think Joey's got to get stronger. I want him to learn one position. But I could eventually see that. I hope that doesn't come into play. I hope that they don't need him at wide receiver because because they're so good there, and he's so good at safety. But if he's going to play wide receiver, I hope it's because they're so good at safety that they don't need him at safety. One way or the other. I'd rather him not. Colorado kind of needed that because he was the best guy in the room at either position. I hope that there doesn't come a day where he's the best position. He's the best player at two spots.
We share the same sentiment. Yep. I'm right there with you.
All right, it's a good question. Let's see here. We got another one. Here's one that I know a lot of people have asked about from Jordan Schreiber.
Could Notre Dame give Price enough to come back for one more year? Man, I'd love to see a Price Aeneas backfield. Would be deadly.
Well, I mean, could they give him enough to come back? Sure. There's two aspects of that. Number one is if he's ready, this game is ready, and he wants to go pro. He'll have his degree. Then I think you kind of encourage him to go pro. If he's not sure, then you maybe see what you can do to get him to come back. And if he wants to come back, you take him with open arms and you figure out how to make it work. I'm personally not a huge fan of trying to convince guys to come back if they think they're ready and you think they're ready. I'm not a huge fan of that, especially at a position like running back, where the NFL is going to look at, well, this guy's carried the ball a lot the last couple of years. I mean, we've seen people say, like, well, he doesn't carry the ball a whole lot the last couple of years. Actually, he has. He's carried the ball a pretty decent amount the last 2 years. I mean, this year he carried the ball 113 times. Last year he carried the ball 120 times. He has over 230 carries the last 2 years. He has over 1,000 yards rushing the last 2 years. So, and he already had the one Achilles injury. So if you think he's ready and he thinks he's ready, I would encourage him to follow his heart. If he's thinking about, hey, I'd like to come back, then I'd try to make it worth his while to come back. If he wants to come back, I will certainly do that. But I don't want to give him an offer he can't refuse financially to get him to come back, because I think that's a short-term bust, but there's a lot of long-term risk there. And that's kind of an issue for it. I want to point out something else too, because this question was brought up by Pete Weber. He still offered to interview the recruits when they commit. One thing I didn't get into also that factored into it is more and more recruits will only talk to the national services. So like Madden Faramo, for example, would not talk to us. Not person, just would ignore us. He would only talk to a couple national people. I've been told on pretty good authority from multiple people, coaches, recruits, parents, that some of the networks are basically paying kids to only talk to them. They're giving them NIL deals to only talk to them. That's also part of what we're up against. It's hard to get to know kids. We have some success with certain kids, but like the high-profile kids that people really want to talk to, it's hard. I mean, I've talked to people in the industry, and even some of them are having a hard time with it. But like the team sites are, at not all places, but at some places, are just having a tougher time really getting a hold of kids because there's also so many people that cover recruiting now. Like every team has like 5-6 different sites to some degree that cover recruiting, whether they're sites that are more kind of known and established and can get credentialed, or they're sites that can't get credentialed. There's a site that covers recruiting that Notre Dame won't credential for good reason, but they have a recruiting guy and they put stuff out and all that. I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, it's harder and harder and harder with the way the business goes now. Like back in the day, man, I'd break recruitments because, I remember breaking a DeVaris Daniels commitment. I just called him up. We knew each other. I called him up. Hey, man, what's going on? Blah, blah. 5 minutes of conversation. He's like, yeah, I just committed to Notre Dame, by the way. Way to bury the lead, DeVaris. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, hey, you want me to put that out? He's like, yeah, go ahead, man. Put it out there. And well, Twitter wasn't really a thing at the time. At least I never heard of it. And social media wasn't really it was still about publishing stories, putting it on your message board. And then other people would get it and run with it. And that's what I did. So, I remember the Stephon Tuitt when he flipped from Georgia Tech back to Notre Dame. I was good friends with a coach on the staff at the time. They were at the house. They're all celebrating. He calls me up, hands me the phone, hands the phone to Stephon. Stephon lets me know, hey, I'm going back to Notre Dame. And so then I had a good relationship with his mom too. And then we were able to break the commit. You don't do that anymore. And that's not a bad thing. Kids, they're doing it themselves now, which I support. I fully support. But it's just the business has changed. And it's gotten really slimy. Like, you got to pay. There's kids we've talked to that said, I'll come on your show. You got to pay me to come on your show. I'm not paying a kid to come on my show. I don't charge anybody to go on anybody else's show. I'm not going to pay you to come on my show. I'll let you, talk about your NIL thing, whatever you're doing, but I'm not going to pay you to come on my show. There's a lot of that stuff that I'm just like, I'm no part of, to be honest with you. And so those are all those things factor into why we just decided. And again, I don't have CBS Sports or the On3 or like some big network that's kind of backing us in a lot of these type of things. I don't have that. Like everything that we do, we're fully independent in that regard. And I want to be that way. And that's some of the things you have to kind of give up a little bit. I can't go to 247 and say, hey, we need to hire another recruiting guy. Can you guys, do this, do that, do the other thing? I don't have the ability to do that. So that's something that I didn't mention earlier that Pete's comment made me think of. But yeah, the first time I had a kid tell us that, like, well, he'll come on our show, but we have to pay him, I was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Not all kids are that way, but there's just enough of it where it's like, dude, I'm not going to deal with this at all. So those are other things that factored into it as well, which makes it, you got to invest even more time to get to build these relationships you did in the past. And then you just don't know who's telling you the truth. After a while, you just get tired of getting lied to by coaches, by parents, by players. It's like, you just get to the point where it's like, screw this. I'm tired of getting lied to.
From Irish Dragon 23, there's a claim that a Pop-Tarts Bowl organizer called the Mad Dog Unleashed podcast and said that Jim Phillips was told that either way, an ACC team was getting in. Thoughts?
So I listened to that interview. I don't know if you did as Trev. He didn't exactly say that. That's people's interpretation of it. What he basically said is Jim Phillips made a face, gave him a wink. He interpreted that as we're going to have a team in no matter what. People have interpreted that. That's not what he said. Do I think that the rig was in? Yes. But I don't think that if that's all you had in the court of law, I don't know that you're going to win that case.
Yeah.
But I think it backs up a lot of the other things that we know that they knew either Virginia's getting in or Miami's getting in is how I think Jim Phillips knew. The ACC was not going to get shut out. I think he knew that. And I think he also knew that Notre Dame was going to be the team that was out because they weren't going to drop Alabama. That level of collusion is a major problem.
Yep.
But I don't know if it was definitely the way that Notre Dame's going to be there no matter what. I don't know that he directly said that. I think it was inferred by his responses. I could be misinterpreting that. It was damning. Don't get me wrong. It was a damning comment. If it's true, we don't know that it's true. It could have just been some guy saying that. If it's true, it's very damning. I just don't know if it's quite as bad as maybe how some of us are interpreting that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm to the point. Would it surprise me? No, not at all. I don't know if anything's going to surprise me more than it did on Sunday. Like I said, Notre Dame had minus 3,500 odds on FanDuel to make the playoffs before noon on Sunday, and then they ended up not being in. So would a situation like this surprise me? No, it absolutely wouldn't. But I'm with Brian. He didn't just come and flat out say that. So getting into part 3 of the Friday Free for All mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Got a question from our guy Josh Phillips in here. Question is the kicker from Texas a kid Notre Dame should consider in the transfer portal?
I don't know enough about him, Josh. I would certainly next week we're gonna do a show. Trev, let's just probably make it our first show of the week, barring any news breaking. Let's just make it our first show of the week. We're gonna break down what we think the different portal needs are for Notre Dame. I mean, I didn't know that. I don't know that Mason Shipley was in the portal. Is that who he's talking about? Is it Mason Shipley? Is he in the portal?
I think so.
I'll go look real quick, but I haven't really locked in yet to who's jumped in yet or who's not jumped in yet. But he's a solid kicker. Yeah, he looks like he's entering the portal. No, that's not him. Let me see here real quick. Yeah, I haven't seen for sure that he's in the portal or not. But yeah, I don't know. Is he going in the portal? I don't know. But if that's who you're talking about, I mean, I'd look at him. I'd want to see who else was out there. But I just don't know enough about him or his situation, Josh, to say definitively that that's where they. So I'm being real hesitant to say for sure who they should or shouldn't go after. So I'm like, you got to get Nick Marsh. Well, what if somebody even better jumps in the? I don't know if there is anyone better to jump in the portal, but it's just like I just want to see some guys jump in first before we start hammering. This is who they should go get. What we will talk about, however, in the show on next week, our first show of the week next week, is we will get into here's where we think they should look at from a position standpoint. And if there are guys in the portal that we think would be good fits, we will talk about them, but it's going to be more so looking at it from a position standpoint. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
Another one from Irish Dragon. Is there substance to the chatter of athletic directors and conferences freezing out Notre Dame as a result of the MOU and declining the bowl bid?
I think that's absolutely absurd. I mean, this is one of the dumbest things I've seen reported in the last couple of weeks. People are acting like this is new. We talked about this a year ago. This has been around, I think, for over a year. If an AD or a conference did not know that this was part of the original agreement, then they don't know what they're doing because they literally agreed to it. So you're telling me all these ADs agreed to something that they didn't know was going on? Nonsense. What this is this is what gets into the thing that I believe Matt Fortuna was talking about where there's a conference sort of push against Notre Dame that they CC'd Notre Dame in because they're idiots. Sorry, there's no other way to say it. And so that's where I think Notre Dame has proof that like you were colluding it basically against us. The reality is these aren't just decisions. You could be sued. Notre Dame can sue for collusion if these conferences start getting together and say, hey, we're gonna freeze you out. Because there's still going to be teams that want to play Notre Dame, and the only way this works is if you basically threaten a team in your league saying, don't go to Notre Dame. Well, that's illegal. So I just think this is a lot of lame chatter. This is a lot of people who like to talk and like to hear themselves talk, lying about, because like they don't want to get, boy, you guys signed this. Why would you sign this? Well, we didn't know. Yeah, you did. Liars. I just think it's just give some people something to talk about.
Yeah, 100%.
This has been out. We talked about this over the summer. This is not new. And if your AD didn't know this, then you need a new AD because he's incompetent.
To kind of follow up on some of the Michigan stuff that we talked about before, Notre Dame villain. Do you think DeBoer will leave Bama for the Michigan job?
No, I don't. I wouldn't touch that job with a 10-foot pole. If you don't like Bama, I get it, but there's better jobs out there right now than this train wreck. I wouldn't want any part of that situation. No part of it. Because here's the other thing I'll be afraid of if I'm Michigan. What motivates Sharon Moore moving forward to not just say, well, now that my career's over, let me tell you the truth about all these things that happened. And do you want to be the head coach when that happens?
That's a good point. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and something that we've seen in sports quite a bit is when a team, an organization, a program, whatever hits rock bottom, that's when everything starts to come out. To Brian's point, it's what else do we have to lose at this point? Yeah.
Yep, I agree. That could go bad. That could go really bad. There we go.
From Salty, which rematch is the worst game of the two? One of them is already the worst game anyways, but Sean doesn't read all of my questions in the CFP first round.
I think the Tulane Ole Miss rematch is going to be terrible. I don't think it's going to be a very clean game. I don't think it's a very competitive game. If it is competitive, it'll probably be more about Ole Miss just playing terrible because Lane's not there anymore. I just think that's going to be an ugly game. I think both of the rematches are going to be terrible games. I really do.
Yeah. I think because of the hype that will go into it in the media hype, my money's on Alabama, Oklahoma just being a really ugly rematch. I mean, I really think so, man. I mean, it was ugly the first time that they played. Just to give you guys a quick window in, right now they're viewing it as a pick'em game. Alabama's currently favored by 1.5. The over-under is set at a whopping 40.5 points by our friends over at FanDuel. I mean,
that's gross. That means they think it's going to be like a 21-20 game.
Yeah. That's like so basically gross. The same as what it was the first time that they played, which, in case anybody needed a reminder, was a really ugly game. I'm not looking forward to that one. Because at least if Oregon blows the doors off of Tulane, or Ole Miss does, if Ole Miss blows the doors off of Tulane, at least you're going to know that there's going to be some sort of offense involved. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me at all to take the under in the Alabama-Oklahoma game if I'm being completely honest. It's going to be gross.
Yep.
Another one from Salty. Which three teams have the best shot at winning the college football title?
I still think it's Ohio State, Georgia. I mean, I think Indiana has a shot. I don't know that I could say definitely three. I think Texas Tech has a shot. They'd be at the bottom of my list. I don't know that they can win three. I think Oregon has a shot. I mean, I think that's the list of teams that have a shot. I don't think A&M's good enough. Defense is good enough. They're going to play an offense that can score, or they're going to play a D-line that can really get after the quarterback, and I think that's going to be their undoing.
Yeah, unlike last year, I think it's the top of the seeding that has the best chance. I think part of that is just because they went with straight seeding. Like, with all due respect to Boise State, like, it was cool seeing them get the 3rd seed last year because of the conference tie-ins. I didn't think that Boise State had a shot to win the national championship. This year, I think it's just the top 5 seeds. The national champion will come out of one of those 5.
All right, let's get to some more questions here. We've got another question for. All right, want to get some people that haven't asked questions yet. So let me work down here. Here we go. Anthony Bell. Here we go.
Where does 2025 Notre Dame rank among the playoff era teams that missed the CFP? 2015 Ohio State comes to mind as the best of them.
That's still the best. I mean, that's still the best team that didn't make the playoff.
Yeah. 15 Ohio State comes to mind because of their early season struggles. I would throw USC 2016 in there. Like, I understand why they missed the playoffs, but at the end of the year, that team was gross.
2018 Ohio State was also really good. 2023 Georgia was pretty good. I like this Notre Dame team better than that Georgia team. I think that 2023 Georgia team got a lot of hype because they ran the table against a bad SEC East. But they were good. They were still pretty good. I think that 2014 TCU team that got jobbed at the end. Remember when they went from 4th to 6th? And after a 52-3 win over Iowa State, they dropped behind Baylor. Remember that? And they were like, well, Baylor won the head. Like, Baylor won the head-to-head like a month and a half ago. It's like, this isn't the first time the committee's basically made crap up in order to get the pairing they wanted.
Yeah.
So and then Ohio State got in after beating Wisconsin 59. But that's a really good TCU team. That was 2014.
Was that Trevon Boykin?
I think so. I'm actually looking that up right now. Yeah, it was Trevon Boykin was the quarterback. They had Aaron Green and BJ Catalan at running back.
Yeah.
They had Josh Doxson at wide receiver and Colby Listenby at wide receiver. Yeah, that team was nasty.
Yeah.
Remember Paul Dawson was a linebacker, had 136 tackles and 20 tackles for loss. Chris Hackett had 7 picks that year. Yeah, that team was really good. That was a really good team. Yeah, Trevon Boykin was a pretty good football player back in the day, Trev. He was.
Yeah, he wasn't bad.
Yeah.
From Adam Garcia, who are some early candidates you guys think would be really good for Notre Dame as the new linebackers coach?
Honestly, Adam, I haven't put a lot of thought into that yet. I don't really know who would Marcus Freeman consider. And honestly, that's not a thing that I plan on putting a lot of time into, because that's one where I kind of trust Marcus Freeman. That's his position. That's his baby.
Yeah.
And whether he promotes someone from the current staff, which he's done in the past. I mean, Chris O'Leary got a bump from being an analyst in a GA, and then Max Bulla did. Is there another Max Bulla coming along? I don't know the answer to that. Or is there somebody more established that he's going to go higher? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it's just kind of happened a couple days ago. And right now, nobody at Notre Dame's doing a lot of talking right now, to be honest with you. So I don't have any answers to that. Wish I did.
Super chat from Andrew Burke. Appreciate you, Andrew. Do you think there was any way Notre Dame was making the playoffs at 10-2 with different wins or losses to get them to 10-2?
I think if they would have beat Miami, they'd have been in. I think that's the only way that they would have been in. If they'd have lost to Miami and beat Texas A&M and then lost to USC, I think they still would have found a way to screw Notre Dame. Like, I do. Because then it would have been like, well, you got this really bad loss to so-and-so, and that team wasn't that good. And, or let's say they lost to a Pitt, a comparable team like the one that Miami lost to, 8-4 team, right? I think they would have still justified not having him in. I think the only way you could justify not keeping Notre Dame out was it was out over Miami.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way they get in, is if they'd have beat Miami and lost to A&M. I think it's the only hope they had. Right. I mean, then you got a 9-3 Miami team and a 10-2 Notre Dame team who won head-to-head. There's no way you put them in over that.
No. Super chat from Erica Seifert. Appreciate you. I just got here. So sorry if this was asked. Which guys do you want to come back for a 5th year? For me, I hope Burnham does. So underrated.
Yeah, I definitely want Josh Burnham to come back. I really hope he comes back. Some of the other potential 5th-year guys, I'm trying to think of who that would even be.
I think
there's
Snead.
no Yeah, just kind of so running backs. I think I'd love to see Jabron Payne kind of get a chance to go play somewhere else. He got his Notre Dame degree. Offensive line wise, I'd love Billy Schrauth to come back. I think that's a big one for Notre Dame. Ashton Craig, it just depends on his health. I mean, the kid's a great player, but at some point in time, you've got to say he played 6 games one year, 3 games the next year. Like, can we really turn this back over to him and then run the risk of him having another knee injury? You know what I mean? Like, you have to – that's unfortunately some of the tough business decisions you have to make nowadays. 5 years ago, it's a no-brainer. You bring him back, let him get healthy, and if he wins the job, he wins the job. You know what I mean? But now it's like, but you got to pay him to come back, and you got to pay other guys to compete with him. And so sometimes you got to make those decisions. Other side of the ball, I mean, there's talk that Jason Onye is trying to see if he has an extra year. I don't know how they're going to be able to handle that. I don't know if the mental health aspect of why he had to step away last year allows him to get an extra year. I hope that he can get one, because if you can get Jason Onye to come back for a 6th year, that answers a lot of your interior problems, from an experience and a proven ability standpoint. I don't think Junior has another year left. Jalen Sneed, honestly, I love what Jalen did for Notre Dame this year. I'd love to see him transfer somewhere and become a full-time starter, because I think he's going to be in a battle next year. You're going to have Kingston back at some point in time. You've got Drake. You've got Jay Nosbury. You've got Matt Framo coming up. You've got some talented young players, Bode Cahoon, Tony Sacca, Anthony Sacca, guys like that. I think it's time for him to move on. I don't know what other fifth-year guys there really are. I mean, the fifth-year class is, kind of. I mean, it's kind of small. They're because that class wasn't real big. A lot of guys from that class have already left. Benjamin Morrison's already gone from that class. Jaden Mickey's already gone from that class. Jalen Sneed, we talked about. Emil Wagner, I think it's time for Emil to move on, whether it's the NFL or another school. Tyson Ford's already gone. We talked about Billy Schrauth. Tobias is already gone. Joey Tanona's already gone. Eli Raridan can't come back. Aiden Galbira's gone. Jaden Mickey's gone. Junior can't come back. Jadarian Price, I would love it if Jadarian Price came back. Just selfishly, he's a Notre Dame fan. I just don't think that he would. But if he wants to come back and be the guy next year, I'm fine with that. No, Holden Stace's already gone. Ty Chan's already gone. Nolan Ziegler's already gone. Benjamin Morrison's already gone. Jaden Bellamy's already gone. We talked about Ashton Craig. Oh, Donovan Heinisch is another one that I'd like to come back. He's a 5th-year guy I'd like to see come back next year for sure. And then you got Steve Angeli, Bryce McPherson are also both already gone. So a big chunk of that class is already gone. So it's Billy Schrauth, it's Josh Burnham, it's Donovan Heinisch. As far as the 5th years, you'd like a 6th-year Jason Onye to potentially be able to come back. I think that's my list of guys that I really, really would like to come back next year. It's not a huge list, but that's the one that I'd like to see. The rest, I think it's best that it's time for them to move on. Thank you for the super chat, Erica.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, Tyler. Can you grade the hires at James Madison, South Florida, Memphis, and Tulane?
So the James Madison hire, the Memphis hire is one that I definitely really like. Charles Huff is a guy that we've talked about. We saw him come to Notre Dame Stadium, beat Notre Dame. He did a really nice job at Marshall, built them up pretty well. Went to Southern Miss, turned them around immediately. He's got a great track record. Coach was very successful at I'm drawing a complete Penn State as a assistant coach. Obviously Notre Dame tried to hire him as an assistant coach. He ended up going to Bama instead, and so I think that is the next hire. Who did JMU hire? Do you know? They hired Napier, right? Didn't they hire Billy Napier? That's a good hire. I think that's more his level. I think he's shown he can win at that level. He did a good job at Louisiana. I think it's a place that you can recruit. I think he'll have success there in that regard. I think that was a strong hire. He's a name. Tulane, they upgraded their pass game coordinator. I don't know a lot about him. I'm not quite sure what to make of that one, to be honest with you, because I just don't know a lot about him. So I don't know if that was a panic hire. I don't know if that was they love him. He's an up and coming coach, and maybe it's something where like John Sumrall said, "Hey, I think this should be the guy. I think he does a great." I don't know the details behind it. If that's the case, I'm always about giving guys like that an opportunity instead of recycling some other coach who's going to either has failed somewhere else and is trying to get back, or some other guy that's just going to use you as a stepping stone. I like giving young guys like that an opportunity. And then South Florida hire, I mean, I think it's a risky hire, but I also think it makes a lot of sense hiring Brian Hartline. Look, he's bringing a huge name to the conversation. He's got a great pedigree, played in the NFL, has been coaching Ohio State. He recruits the heck out of the South. Done a great job recruiting South for wide receivers. I don't know how good of a coach he is, but I think this is the kind of hire that, you want to make a splash. A lot of potential for a bust, but also a lot of potential for it to boom if he has what it takes to be head coach, because he's definitely going to recruit. I think there's no doubt about that. And he's got a great reputation.
It's a really good job for him to cut his teeth on. I'm glad that Brian Hartline didn't go, and a school like a Florida wasn't like, all right, Brian Hartline, come on in here and lead this program. I think that for the same reasons, one of the other names that I mentioned too was like a Tommy Rees. I think if he were to become a head coach somewhere in college, like I wouldn't love him at Michigan. I think he should go somewhere and cut his teeth on like somewhere at the G5 level. So yeah,
or a smaller Big Ten school like a Northwestern, a place like that, Rutgers, or something like that.
Yeah,
where you go 8-4 and people love you. I agree. I would be happy for Tommy. I'd be very happy for Tommy. I just don't know that just in general, I'm not a huge fan of that unless it's a guy that more personally, like we saw with Marcus Freeman. But I've also pointed out, Trevor, in the past, that while that's my go-to of what I think, kind of where I'm at, you have to look at the track record of guys who don't have that background, who get their first job at a big school and the success they've had. Ryan Day had never been a head coach before until Ohio State. Kirby Smart had never been a head coach before Ohio State. Dan Lanning had never been one. You look at the job Mike Elko did, going to Duke and cutting his teeth there, then getting the A&M job. So I think there's a lot of that. Obviously, with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Kalani Sitake, are guys that way. So I mean, there's Clark Lee and the job he's done at Vanderbilt. Kyle Whittingham had one head coaching job in his life, and it's at Utah. So Lincoln Riley going from OC at Oklahoma to the head coach at Oklahoma and the success he had. So a lot of the top teams in the country have head coaches who were successful kind of right out of the gate at big time programs. Now, all the circumstances were different. And in a lot of those places, you weren't inheriting a 4-8 team. Just like think about the guys that we just talked about, right? I mean, Ryan Day was walking into a pretty good situation. Kirby Smart had to get Georgia back on track, but he inherited a pretty talented roster from Mark Richt. Obviously Dan Lanning inherited a very talented roster at Oregon. Marcus Freeman inherited a pretty talented roster at Notre Dame. Kalani Sitake had to struggle for a while to get BYU back on track, but still inherited a pretty good situation from Bronco Mendenhall. You look at Clark Lee. He had to do a rebuild. Kyle Whittingham was replacing Urban Meyer. Right. So, I mean, the circumstances are all different. Clark Lee's the only guy that really had to take over just a busted program and turn it around.
Yeah.
And, but again, he was an alum. He knew the school. He knew how it worked. It's a different situation. So while my preference is more of what you said, I want a guy that, I want a guy that doesn't have experience coaching at a smaller school. We have seen some guys be successful, but I could also give you a long list of guys who hadn't coached before who failed in similar situations. You have to hire the right guy for the job. Sometimes that's an experienced guy. Sometimes it isn't. Christopher Galloway, my guy, Black Irish, I appreciate you. Here's a little help to the team. I appreciate you very much, man. I do.
Super chat from Raymond Hartman. Appreciate you, man. I completely understand why you have distanced yourself from recruiting, especially after what went on in 22 and 23 recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, it just turned a lot of people off. I mean, just a lot of people were just like, man, I'm tired of talking about this. I'm tired of following it. I'm tired of investing in it. I'm tired of all these different things. It just, and again, we were losing money. We were not making as much money off of recruiting content as I was paying people to do recruiting content. And so again, I think eventually we will get back to it. So we'll see. All right, we got to that one. Let's get to some more here. Here we go. This is a really good one.
From Coleman Smith, what do you think the best way to figure out the 12 best teams? I feel like expanding and keeping this bogus committee just furthers the corruption of the SEC and the Big Ten.
The reality is there's no perfect system. If you go to the computers, there's going to be years we're upset about the computers. Like, humans still have to create the models that go into the computers, right? We complained about the BCS for years. I still think a human system is the best, but it's almost impossible to have a human system in $1 billion industry where the network that airs the playoff committee also has partnerships with 2 of the 4 major Power 4 conferences. It's just hard to have a fair system in that regard. Because then you can say, well, just go to computers. Well, okay, are they going to pay people to give us models that are always going to favor the teams that, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I've said is like, the biggest thing is you have to disassociate the process from ESPN in regard to influence over, and they can say all they want. We don't have influence over the committee. Yeah, you do. And, you know, how do you do that? I mean, I would say you got to get rid of politicking altogether. You've got to get a system where you have a committee that has some real teeth. Where, people say, we need a commissioner of college football. No, we don't. What we need is somebody who oversees the playoff. I'm the boss of the playoff. You know what I mean? And the committee with me, we're the boss of the playoff. We determine who are and when I mean committee with him, I mean they're the overseers of running it all, and then they hire who the members are that determine who's in the playoffs. And I still would like a human committee. It's just not the way that it is now. Trev and I talked about it. No people currently affiliated with schools. Yeah, you can't have sitting ADs who benefit from, I mean, look, you're telling me that Virginia AD doesn't at all think about the fact that if I vote for Notre Dame over Miami, my league will have no one in the playoff, which means we get none of the millions that are going to come to our league if Miami's in. You're going to tell me that she was able to just say, all that aside, no, I'm going to do the right thing and put Notre Dame in. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. We don't know. But the fact that we didn't have to ask that question, is a problem.
Yeah.
I think you need to be able to have a way to where the process is more open with how decisions are made, the data being used and considered, who voted for what. I'm sick of this whole recusing thing. I don't think there should be any recusals. If you don't think someone can be honest and fair, they shouldn't be on your committee. So Ivan Mizell has to recuse himself from Notre Dame because he wrote a book. Did he have to recuse himself from talking about Alabama where he graduated? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the answer to that. Why should Ivan Mizell have to recuse himself from anything? If he's not able to be honest about Notre Dame or Alabama or anybody else, he shouldn't be on the committee. If he's able to be honest about them, then he should be able to talk about them. And then put the votes out there. Who voted for who? I mean, that's the stuff it's more so about the transparency. I do believe that if in the system where ESPN has all this control, we need to go back to computer models. We need transparency about what models are going in, how they're being calculated, because you can't just have one computer model, because then it's always, this one places more emphasis on game control. This one places more emphasis on strength of schedule. This is whatever. And then bring those, what was it, like 6 or 7 for the BCS? And then you bring those all together, and then that's what it kicks out what it kicks out. And if the SEC only has 2 teams, then suck it up, Buttercup, and do what you keep telling us to do and get better. You know what I mean? But you've got to make sure that you've got some safeguards in there to make sure that there's not some team that, goes 7-5, but because they played a bunch of good teams, they're in. Like one of the computer models, I think had let me just look it up real quick and make sure that I got this right. But if I remember correctly, one of them had just like this really absurd thing. So like, let's say the Sagarin rating is what we're in. They had Penn State 14th. That means they had Penn State real close to making the playoffs. And if we're in a 16-team playoff, Penn State's in. They went 6-6. You know what I mean? Like that, there's something flawed with that model. And you got to tweak it and adjust it and figure out why it's kicking out certain routes. Not Notre Dame over Alabama, but hold on a second. Why is the 6-6 team ranked 7th? You know what I mean? Like those are things you've got to guard yourself against. And again, there's no perfect system. But that's why I say a combination of the data, humans interpreting the data, and being open and honest about it. Look, the computers favored so-and-so, but here's why the human committee went this direction. Be honest about it. What are the criteria you can even consider? Eye test or whatever the case may be. And then have those conversations and say, here's what we decided. Here's the data we used to decide it. And then here's what we came up with. And then it's all open and transparent. I don't need to know how they baked the cake, but I need to know I don't need to know how they baked the cake in regard to the conversations that you and your wife and whoever else that are baking the cake had, but I need to know the ingredients in it. And then I need to know what the final product looks like. That's what I think we need to see more of.
Now I need to go get some cake.
We do love doing some food references here. All right, let's get to some more questions here.
From Anthony Bell, Notre Dame's stretch of running backs dating back to 2020 is ridiculous. Kyron to Audric to Jay Love and Price. Has there been a better stretch of Notre Dame running backs over 5 years?
Debatable. Yeah, I mean, look, from 1989, let me just pull this up. So Lou Holtz basically had a stretch like this. Maybe better. And I'm just going to pull it up. So Notre Dame in running backs in 1988, 89, in 1989, you had Anthony Johnson, who was a second-round draft pick. You had Ricky Waters, who was a second-round draft pick, both on the 1989 team. You also had Rodney Culver as part of that team. He was a fourth-round draft pick. In 1990, you had Ricky Waters, Rodney Culver, Jerome Bettis, Reggie Brooks, and Tony Brooks, all in the Notre Dame backfield, all drafted. Like, that was a pretty good stretch. And then before that, you had Anthony Johnson, who was on the 1988 title team. He was drafted in the fourth round of the NFL draft. You know, so like, yeah, Notre Dame had some pretty good running backs back in the day. They did. I mean, and Alan Pinkett was done in 85. You know, his last year was in 85. He was, you know, I think at the time it set Notre Dame's all-time rushing record. So, yeah, you've had some stretches that were comparable to this, yeah. I mean, you had Jerome Bettis and Reggie Brooks on the same team. That's pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
The fact that we're even having a conversation about whether or not Jay Love and Jadarian Price are better says so much about how good those kids were. Yeah. And Trev, you may sit there and be like, for argument's sake, you're young. I'm not saying you believe this. Well, look, I don't care, man. I know those guys were good, but I've watched these guys and they're that good. I'm like, well, yeah, you're kind of biased, Trev. You see these guys. I'm telling you as someone who saw both. Yeah. This unit is like, oh, I want to have a conversation at least. I don't know if it is better, but I want to at least have a conversation about it. You know what I mean? And I mean, like I said, in 1990, you had Ricky Waters, Reggie Brooks, Tony Brooks, Jerome Bettis. Did I say Rodney Culver yet? Rodney Culver. So it's Ricky Waters, Rodney Culver, Jerome Bettis, Tony Brooks, Reggie Brooks, all in the same backfield. Oh, and Dorsey Levens, who ended up transferring to Georgia Tech and won a Super Bowl as the starting running back for the Packers, was also part of one of those rooms. I mean, when was Dorsey? I think Dorsey was in the same class as Reggie and Jerome, I believe. He was a year before. He was on the 89 to 1990 Notre Dame depth chart. Dorsey Levens, who transferred to Georgia Tech was a pretty good running back, was drafted in the 5th round. And as I mentioned, I think he had multiple 1,000-year seasons in the NFL and was the starting running back when they won the Super Bowl in 1997. So yeah, I'd say I'd say those running back rooms back then were pretty flipping good. This different era though too. There was a lot more elite running backs back then than there is now, because there's just not as many teams that put their best running back at athlete or best athlete at running back anymore. Back in the day, I mean, Brian Smith and I've talked about this. Best player for every team played running back in the day. Mike Elston was a running back at St. Mary's Memorial High School. He's 6'5", 230. He's the best football player that St. Mary's has. So they put him at running back. And like our biggest guy was like 210 at Bath. And I'm like, how the heck are they supposed to cancel this? And it was cool for me because I was in elementary or middle school at the time. I can't remember if I was 4th or 5th or 6th grade back then. But I grew up, I was a ball boy, because this is one of the schools where this high school, the elementary, middle, and high school are all the same. I mean, you're all playing together from the time you're in Pop Warner till you get to high school. And so, like, I was kind of part of that young group of really talented athletes that they wanted around the varsity team. So, we'd be ball boys and water boys and stuff like that. And I remember after games, we would go with them through the line and shake hands. And I remember walking by Mike Elston. I'm his like 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. I'm like, that's the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life. And he's playing running back. Nowadays, you would never put a guy like Mike Elston at running back. Not that he couldn't do it, but it's like he's going to be your pass rush specialist and a pass catcher. He's going to catch the ball because you're throwing the ball all the time. It's just a different era.
Yeah.
So I think it's impressive they've been able to do it in this era, especially in this era of the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. It's even more impressive. That they've been able to keep those guys together, but the kind of young men that they are, that like Jadarian Price could have got a lot more money and played a lot more football this year if he'd have hit the portal last year. But he wanted to be a part of this team, and I just think it says so much about those guys. But yeah, Anthony, this is a great stretch of running backs, but that 1989 to 1993, 94 era was pretty good too. And they had fullbacks back then too. Don't forget they had like Ray Zellers. You know what I mean? Like Mark Edwards. Like they had fullbacks that were dudes back then too. So it was a little different era. Very different era. I think we had a super chat come in. Here we go.
From Tyler Evans, appreciate you. BD, if you were the quarterbacks coach at Notre Dame, what would you work on with CJ to elevate his game next year?
A couple things about it. Number one is technically the biggest thing for me with CJ is I want him to snap off more throws. I think there's too many times when CJ doesn't quite, like, he doesn't go through his mechanics in a way where he just powers the ball. CJ's got a pretty strong arm, but we don't see a lot of throws outside of the rhythm comebacks and stops where he really just really snaps the ball out, right? It's a lot of it's like placement, things like that, which you're going to do a lot of the time, but and then it hurts him also at times when it comes to throwing the deep ball. I think sometimes he'll kind of aim it. I want to see him just snap that thing off and let guys run underneath him. Yeah, I think that's all part of the growth experience. That's the technical things. And then the mental things is more of where I'm going to work with CJ, which is just, trusting your pre-snap reads, but getting a better feel for what you're doing post-snap. Things along those lines, just the processing piece of all of this. But that's not that Gino's not doing that. Coach Gaduli's not doing that. It's just you can only do that so far in year one as a starter, and then in year two you can do more, and then in year three you can do more. Where I'm going to be critical of Coach Gaduli in that regard is if I don't see growth in year two. But, I mean, for year one, it was pretty good. I mean, we both named him our top assistant coach for offense. Yeah. But that's part of the evolution of a young quarterback is that. So just getting him better, like, hey, man, like, for example, here's an example of what I'm talking about. Small example. The Stanford game. There's 3 different throws where I'm like, I get why he went where he went, but a more experienced quarterback would have done this. So there was a play where pre-snap, he saw a blitz coming. They're running double slants behind the blitz. There's an inside guy and an outside guy, receiver and DB. Well, that's an inside-out read. So if the inside guy's open, you throw the inside guy. And he did, and you converted to third down, right? So as I said at the time, am I upset about that decision? No, I'm not. But a more experienced quarterback is going to see how tight that safety is down and how off the corner is outside and say, yes, I know the inside guy is open. But if I throw this slant to Jordan Faison, he's going to catch this thing and have nobody within 5-6 yards of him. So we're not going to get the first down. He's going to be in a catch and run situation. That's what a more experienced quarterback will do. Those things I work with him on. There's another play where I get why he read the play to the right. I get it. That was his primary read. But a more experienced quarterback is going to quickly see the roll and know I'm coming right backside to the stop. I'm reading front to back. If this safety goes here, I know I'm coming right backside to Jordan Faison on the stop route. Those type of things I think CJ will continue to evolve with that are more sort of advanced level stuff that I want to see him work on. That and just, like I said, snapping the ball off a little bit more where he kind of aims a lot of things. He's got a strong arm. And you saw it this year with some of the deep out throws. When he knew he had to muscle it up, I just want to see him snap the ball up. I think he's got a real smooth release. I think he just needs at times to just really drive the ball a little bit more. And that'll be the next evolution from a technical standpoint. He doesn't have a lot to work on other than just experience, things that come with experience. He really doesn't. But those are the things that I would point to and say, hey, let's improve here.
I'd also get him with the baseball team and teach him how to slide a little better.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Thank you, Trevor. Oh, boy. Let's see here.
From ND for Life. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Do you think our athletic director's willingness to disclose Notre Dame's MOU was a mistake that he regrets, especially seeing how the media slowly picked up on it?
No, because I don't think he brought it up. Did he? Was he the one that brought it up? I thought it was brought up in a conversation. I didn't think he's the one that brought it up. I could be wrong.
I don't think that he came out and said well, we have this next year. And I don't think it's that.
I thought he was asked about it, but this has been out for a while. I mean, we talked about this over the summer. I think that's more of a piling on thing, and I don't think he should care as much about piling on. Because, what would the justification be for them taking that out now? You know what I mean? You got to be – because this is – I mean, these are all legal issues and $1 million deals and stuff like that if you kind of back out of one, you run the risk of, okay, well, now I can pursue legal action against you. And you got to be careful with that stuff. Real careful with that stuff. Let's see here. All right. I'm not even going to touch the Brian Kelly ones. Sorry. Oh, here we go. I want to get to some we haven't got to yet.
From Brandon Gilbert, is there any network streaming service that can somehow take college football out of the control of ESPN?
Unfortunately, I don't see that right now. I think the only way ESPN loses control is if ESPN basically falters as a company. And then somebody steps into that space. For now, I think down the road that may not be true. But am I the only one that thinks Brandon looks like Autry Denson, or is it just me? Every time, since the avatars got kind of built up, I'm like, is that Autry Denson or is that Brandon? But anyway, so yeah, you see what I'm saying? Trev, he's like, man, this guy, I wasn't born yet. You were one when Autry got done playing, okay? You should remember this.
I should have, man.
But
I should have remembered.
Right now, today, in the next year or two, no, barring ESPN imploding, I don't see that. Could that be true in 10 years? Lots of things are going to change in 10 years. Maybe that changes in 10 years. But right now, I don't. And then there's another question about that. Brian, please clarify the MOU trigger. My understanding is the rank 12 is if the CFP goes to 14. They rank 13 if it goes to 16. I don't know about the 13 part. My understanding is it was 12. If they're 12, they're automatic. It may go up to 13 if it goes to 16. I only heard about the 12. So I'll look for clarity on that as well. I don't know that I necessarily care about it being to 13 if it goes to 16, because honestly, if you're not better than 12th or better, I'm not really pushing for you to be in anyway. You know what I mean? Now people say, well, but what if they just screw Notre Dame over? I mean, guys, if we get to that point where they're just screwing Notre Dame over, then Notre Dame has to deal with that. But we go back to what we said earlier: is if you handle your business, then you're okay.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't matter anyway.
I want Notre Dame to be in the playoffs as much as anybody, but if it expands to 16 and they need an automatic bid to be the 15th ranked team, I don't think that they're going to win a national championship if they get in at 15th. Like, the ultimate goal of this isn't to just make the playoffs, it's to win a national championship. And so if there needs to be some sort of caveat that Notre Dame has to have a trigger to get them an automatic bid in a 16-team playoff, and that puts them at 13th, 14th, 15th, whatever the seeding might be, then I start to question what's their ability to make a run. Like, that's the whole goal. One of the reasons why I was so disappointed this season is because this Notre Dame team absolutely could have made a run at the national title. By the way that they were playing, the skill set that they had, the coaching staff that they had in place, and how they had been playing the last 2.5 months. It's not just because, I wish I could have said Notre Dame made the playoffs this year. That's the overarching goal in mind. That's how I look at this USMA.
Quick question from Salty. Is Texas Tech here to stay as a perennial contender? They've shot. I mean, I need to see them do it more than once, but like today, they just got a commitment today during our show from Matt Ludwig, the big time tight end that got out of his commitment to Michigan. As long as Cody Campbell, is that his name? The big donor. As long as he's given money and as long as they're able to, I mean, look, that's a place you can win if you can do it right in the current era. You can convince kids to come to Lubbock for a couple of years if you pay them enough. You weren't going to get them to do it for free. That's just the reality of it. I mean, sure. But I shouldn't say this. Are they here to stay as a perennial college football playoff contender? I have no idea. Do they have the resources to be a perennial college football playoff contender for the next several years? Yes, they do. They do.
From Anthony Bell, now that his career is over, where does Jeremiah Love rank amongst all players you've seen put on a gold helmet?
Oh boy, he is top 5 for me. If you look at talent, impact, on and off the field, all that kind of stuff. I mean, top 5 players of my lifetime. And again, I didn't really see Tim Brown play. My lifetime really started of fandom where I can intelligently talk about something really started in 1988. Top 5 players for me are probably Rocket Ismail, Bryant Young, Brady Quinn, Manti, and you can pick which receiver you like better, Michael Floyd or Golden Tate. I mean, that's probably my 5 before Jeremiah. Did what he do? I mean, you got Tony Rice. You could have Aaron Taylor. I mean, there's been some great players. Did what Jeremiah do? Did he do enough the last 2 years to put himself in a position where he belongs in that conversation? Yes, he absolutely did. He absolutely did. I mean, he's not Rocket. I mean, his numbers are better than Rocket's, but he's not Rocket because Rocket impacted the game in so many different ways. But he's the closest thing we've seen since Rocket to a guy that just is a dynamic weapon. To not just like Josh Adams was a threat to score every time he touched the ball because he was really fast and but you had to kind of open a hole for him. You know what I mean? Where this is a kid that's a threat to score even if the line doesn't necessarily do their job real well. And if they do their job real well, he can go for 99 on a you know what I mean? Like, you get a body on a body, he's going to go. I mean, he was so impressive. Does he belong in that conversation of those players for what they did in Notre Dame? I believe he does. But it took the second year. I mean, last year was fun to watch, but he was such a better player this year than he was last year. Such a better player.
Yeah, and in my lifetime, he's top 5, not 5th. I mean, the top 5 in my lifetime is probably, I just wrote it down, just a quick little list. I have Brady Quinn, Manti, and this isn't in order, but I have Brady Quinn, Manti Te'o, Jeremiah Love, Michael Floyd, and Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson's the best offensive lineman I've seen play at Notre Dame. That guy's nuts.
Yeah. He should be in that conversation as well. That's a good one. I forgot about Q.
That's elite. That's where I'm at with my list, and I don't know if I can put J Love at the 5th spot.
Yeah. He's in that conversation. Yep.
From Insured by Big, our resident LSU fan in the chat, have y'all had a chance to look over the SEC schedules yet? If so, anything intriguing? Go Tigers.
Well, one that I saw was that they're going to have Alabama they're going to have Alabama and Georgia play again. There was a long time that Alabama and Georgia almost never played in the regular season. I think this is going to be the third year in a row that Alabama's playing Georgia. So Bama's going to have definitely going to have a challenging schedule next year. They get South Carolina at home, at Mississippi State, home against Georgia, at Tennessee, home against Texas A&M, at LSU, at Vandy, home against Auburn. So they'll have a challenging schedule. Georgia's schedule next year is interesting because it's got a couple good games on it, but then not a lot of games that I don't expect to be very tough. They play at Arkansas. I don't think Arkansas will be very good next year. They get Oklahoma at home. They get Vandy at home, and they play at Alabama. So through October 10th, that's a tough slate. But then after that, you get Auburn at home. You get Florida neutral field. I don't think they're going to be as good. You get at Ole Miss, which on paper right now looks good. I think Ole Miss takes a big step back after Lane Kiffin is gone. I do. I don't think that's going to be all that challenging. You get Missouri at home, at South Carolina. Who knows what they're going to be? So I think that'll be a challenging schedule. I mean, the big one for me is just, September 19th when LSU goes to Ole Miss is going to be very interesting to see that game and how that game plays. That's going to be interesting. And I'll tell you, another team that continues to kind of get a little bit of a nice draw is Texas doesn't have to play Alabama or Georgia next year. They get Tennessee on the road. They get Oklahoma on a neutral field. They get Ole Miss at home, Florida at home, Mississippi State at home. They have to play at Missouri, at LSU, at Texas A&M, which are going to be tough games. But, they get to continue to not have to play. Have they played Bama yet since they joined the SEC?
In the regular season? No.
I don't think so.
Have you seen Texas A&M schedule for next year?
It's probably crazy hard, isn't it? Or is it super
brutal? Easy? It's brutal. Yeah. Like they get
at LSU, at Missouri, at Bama, at South Carolina. They have 5 SEC road games, and they get Texas, Tennessee at home. Yeah, that's not easy. Yeah, their November is going to be tough. At South Carolina, home against Tennessee, at Oklahoma, home against Texas.
Yeah.
And we can't have you messing up our Georgia, Alabama stuff, man. You're ruining it for the big boys.
Yeah, man. If Texas A&M is a playoff team next year, they earned it. You can believe that with that schedule. Out of conference, they also have Arizona State, who's going to be a quality football team. Oof.
Yep. Yeah, that's not going to be super easy. Here's where I've said this before, Trev. I have a lot of issues with the perception of the SEC. I have a lot of issues with how Greg Sankey handles his business. What I have said the last year is I give the SEC a lot of credit because, I'd like to see Texas play Bama, but it's not like Texas has a cakewalk schedule. They are creating a lot of very good in-season matchups in their league. They're not padding the top 4 or 5 team schedules like they are in the Big Ten, where they're trying to schedule their best teams into great records. You've got to earn your keep next year in the SEC, assuming teams are kind of what they are now. I give them credit for that. I haven't gone through all the schedules to know if that's true for everybody, but I will give them that credit. My issue, however, is the perception that people think that every year, just because they had to keep playing each other, that the league is great. That's my bigger issue. That's what I have a problem with. This team had to play Auburn. They're better than Navy. Why? What makes you think that? Have more NFL players than Navy. So that doesn't make them a better team. This assumption that the SEC is always good. Most years it is. Some years it isn't. This year, the best SEC teams weren't that great. And that's why there should not be 5 SEC teams in the playoff. Next year, they may deserve 5 teams in the SEC. Next year, they may deserve 6. Graded on what they are, not what you perceive them to be because they're the SEC. That's my issue.
I mean, the biggest issue with how big these conferences are is conference schedules aren't created equally. So you have some teams like Ole Miss kind of feasting on the fact it's like, well, we play in the SEC. And it's like, yeah, you played 5 teams with losing records. That's not the same as what Oklahoma had to play.
Right.
Exactly. That's what's so hard to gauge about it. You have other teams that are kind of feasting on the fact that they can say, well, we played an SEC schedule. Big picture, technically that is correct because the majority of your schedule is made up of SEC opponents. But it's not all created equal. You didn't play LSU's SEC schedule. You didn't play South Carolina's SEC schedule. It's just different.
I got to say, this is my favorite question. I just came across this question from Brandon Gilbert. Totally unbiased question. Are y'all open gifts at midnight, crazy people who probably also hate puppies? Or do you enjoy opening gifts on Christmas morning like what's in the Geneva Convention? I have no idea where that question came from, but that is such a great question. And the best part is he starts it off with, and he's clearly being sarcastic, no bias here, a totally unbiased question. But if you answer A, you also hate puppies. And if you answer B, you're going along with the Geneva Conventions. That might be the funniest question I've ever read in the entire time we're doing this. Do you agree with A, where you probably also hate puppies? Or do you agree with B? And this is totally unbiased question. I am a Christmas morning guy, so fortunately I get out of any potential damages from this question. But that is absolutely is absolutely hilarious to me. Brandon, thank you for that question. He lost me with because I see it and I see the totally unbiased question here. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And then he's like, where you also probably hate puppies. What? So when I was a kid, we would always open up a present from my grandma on Christmas Eve. We all are, as a family, we go to my grandma's house, all of us, my aunts, cousins, all of them. And we would open up a present. We'd all get a present from grandma. But then we open Santa's presents on Christmas morning. So I'm a big believer in opening up Santa's presents on Christmas morning. That's what I believe in. So yes, that was that might have been my favorite question I've seen get put in yet. Oh my goodness. This is why I just can't stand so many SEC people. He says, this guy Fifth Dimension, SEC being a great conference and overrated can both be true. It's okay to say it. Dude, this is why we clown you. We said that just now. It's like you don't listen. And that's why I think that you're trolling. And that's why you're not going to be posting here anymore. But you're going to say that when we literally just said it might be the best conference most years, but it's not this year. That's exactly what we said. And if you didn't hear that, then you either don't listen, you're purposely not listening, or you're just trying to troll us. Either way, I'm tired of dealing with it. Peace out. But Insured by Big is an SEC fan, an LSU fan, and we love him. We bring his questions up. Archer's an Ohio State fan. We have no problem with it. If you're just going to come here and be ridiculous, then I don't have time for you. So peace out. We're going to do the last couple because we got to wind this down here real quick. See, you ruined my mood. That's why I banned. I was in a great mood after Brandon's Christmas question. And then that guy has to go ruin my mood. Yep.
Super chat from Paddlefish. Appreciate you. No other team scored 56 on Arkansas, and Arkansas was not held to 13 points all season. Arkansas' strength of schedule was number 5, and they lost 6 games. They lost 6 games by an average of 2.83 points.
Yep.
Since they're 2-10, it's not an impressive win. So they say.
100%. Let's be real about something, Paddlefish. If Bama had played Arkansas and beaten them 56-13, and Notre Dame had played Arkansas and beaten them 27-24, just as an example, you absolutely would have been hearing nonstop about that. Nonstop. But you're not hearing that. Now, Alabama didn't play Arkansas, so you don't have that direct data point, but Ole Miss did. Texas did. A lot of teams in the SEC did. And you can look at how they were competitive week after week after week after week after week in the SEC, but they were by the end of the halftime, that game was way over with against Notre Dame. If it was reversed, they absolutely would have absolutely made a big part of that. That's my issue, is just be consistent. People said, well, if Notre Dame was this, and this, you'd still be pushing for Notre Dame. I'm, no, you can maybe accuse some other people of that. You can't accuse me of that. I've literally gone on record in certain seasons where I didn't think Notre Dame belonged in the playoffs and said they don't belong in this conversation. I said that in 2021. This team does not belong in the playoff conversation. They don't.
If Notre Dame's season would have played like what Alabama's season did, I would have said they didn't belong in the playoffs. If they started it and ended it the same, if they started it losing by 14 points on the road to a team that finished 5-7, and then had an opportunity to play in a play-in game and then get absolutely destroyed by 21 points, I would have not pounded my fist on the table and said Notre Dame should still be in, let alone their ranking shouldn't change.
Correct. I said that in 2017 as well. People were saying, like, well, if this happens, Notre Dame could still sneak into the 14 playoff after they lost to Miami. And I said, no, they don't belong in it. You got blown out. If you get blown out like that, you deserve to be in the playoffs. Not late in that year. That had them out, in my opinion. They did not deserve to be in the playoff at that point in time. Because people look back at that year and like they finished outside of the top 10, but that's because they also lost to Stanford in the last game of the year. But if you actually go back and look in 2017, after they lost to Miami, let me pull this up here real quick. It was where they climbed up. They fell to 8 after they lost to Miami. No, actually, after they lost to, they were 8. They went from 3 to 8 after they lost to Miami. But there was like Auburn, Wisconsin. Like there was a lot of teams that had games coming up that if they lose this, and this, they have a shot. And my whole thing was they don't deserve to be in no matter what happens in front of them, because they got you can't lose 41-8 in a non-fluky beatdown. I mean, there's pick 6 here, so okay, yeah, it would have only been 28-8. That's still a beatdown. You don't get beat that bad and not get in. You just don't. And so, yeah, I am on record as saying that. I'm not the one that's unwilling to say my team doesn't belong if they don't belong. That's a you guys thing, and you guys keep projecting that onto us. That's a you problem.
Super chat from Raymond Harton. Appreciate you, man. Just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys do at Irish Breakdown, what you guys do for us when it comes to us covering this team. Best in the business.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that very much.
Then another super chat from Milk Dude. Appreciate you. What can Notre Dame do to keep Mike Mickens?
Best way to keep Mike Mickens, in my opinion, is to name him co-defensive coordinator and actually give him some real authority on running the defense. Not just in title only, but really like, look, you control the secondary. You control secondary calls. You guys have to work together to make sure that our defense is on the same page. That's the only thing. Or, I mean, if Chris Ash left and you named him full-time coordinator, I could see that as well. But that's what I would do. That would be my, look, it's not a given Mike Mickens is going to leave. I mean, he's not going to just leave for another DB job. I don't think he will. I don't know if he will or won't, but he's kind of shown I'm not going to leave just to leave. I'm going to leave if I get something that helps me build my career path. So hopefully Marcus Freeman does what he needs to do to keep him, because, I mean, there's no such thing as an irreplaceable coach, but he's as close to it as you're going to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Connor Fitch, there is a report Purdue is looking at dropping Notre Dame. What would you do if something like that happens?
Schedule another game. It would be very easy to find someone as good or better than Purdue on the schedule. Very easy.
Yeah.
I mean, teams like Purdue are dragging your schedule down. I mean, if Purdue drops Notre Dame, I'd say, fine, we'll never play you again, ever. Because you bring us no value other than we save a couple bucks on travel. So, I mean, literally half the G5 or half of the American Conference would be a better win than Purdue.
Yeah.
I mean, there are FCS teams that have, I mean, Tennessee State gave Notre Dame a tougher game than what Purdue did in 2024.
I mean, they could even just stay within
that's dead serious. Not even an insulting comment, Trevor. That's a dead serious comment. They were more competitive against Notre Dame in that game than Purdue was last year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, they could stay within the Big Ten and schedule somebody of close. Like, go schedule, you go play like Northwestern, and they would do more for your strength of schedule than what Purdue would.
Yeah. Yep. Here's a fun one. Josh Buffalo, motivational business banker. Start one, sit one, cut one. Jeremiah Love, Reggie Bush, Christian McCaffrey. Well, this is going to be cheating because I'm always going to take the Notre Dame guy. So I'm going to start Jeremiah Love. I'm going to sit Christian McCaffrey over there in the slot position and have him start there. And then I'm going to cut Reggie Bush all the way into my 21 personnel package and go there. How about them apples? You know, like,
well
I did
done,
that.
Sir.
I'm going to start off Jeremiah Love at running back. I'm going to have Christian McCaffrey sit this running back play out and go over there and play in the slot. And then I'm going to make sure that I cut Reggie Bush's distance between Jeremiah Love and my split backfield alignment. How about that?
I like that. Yeah, that's good.
Think that'll work?
Works for me.
Yeah. There you go. All right, last couple, and then we do got to get out of here. But I want to get to some people we didn't get to yet. Here's this is an easy one.
From Big ND Energy, would you risk some departures in the running back room for one more year of Jeremiah Love?
If Jeremiah Love came back to Notre Dame and said, "Coach, I want to come back," and I couldn't talk him out of it, I want to come back, and I knew that every non-freshman was going to leave my team if Jeremiah Love came back, I would bring Jeremiah Love back and say, Jeremiah Love, Javion Osborne, and Jonas Walton is a running back room I can absolutely go win with. And then I'd go find a couple portal guys for depth, and I would run it back. I mean, that wouldn't happen, but if that was the potential risk of bringing Jeremiah Love back, then I absolutely bring Jeremiah Love back. That's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You know,
same boat.
Yep.
From Mad 14 ND, how is it that people say Notre Dame's schedule is weak, but you don't hear about the other weak schedule teams, i.e. IU, Ohio State, Oregon, etc.?
Well, we did. I mean, there was a lot of complaining and whining at the end of the year about Indiana and Ohio State schedules. There's a lot of people crying, SEC people crying about, well, you know, Ohio State hasn't played anybody since blah, 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 blah. And it's this whole lazy, like, because Washington's not an SEC team, that's not counted as a good win. You know, because this team isn't an SEC team, that's not counted as – it was the same lazy stuff about them. Same lazy stuff about Indiana. Now, Indiana's schedule was legitimately weak, but they won all their games, so it doesn't matter. I mean, if Indiana was 11-1, there'd have been a lot more complaining about Indiana's schedule. If they would have lost to Oregon, we would have heard nothing but complaints about their schedule, just like last year.
Yep.
But they didn't lose. And we heard a lot about Oregon's weak schedule. We even talked about that prior to their month of November. But we said if they go out there and beat USC, beat Iowa on the road, beat USC at home, and beat Washington on the road, they have earned their way into the playoff. So, but the other thing too is Oregon's the cool program. They're not, you know what I mean? Like they like to, you know, I don't know. They like them some Oregon, but I think the fact that Oregon handled their business in November, it was harder to criticize their schedule when you look at the three teams they had to play in November. But we've heard all that stuff. We've heard it. But but here's the thing, Indiana handled business. They went on the road and beat Oregon. That's the equivalent of Notre Dame playing A&M or Texas. I mean, or Miami. They just needed to win one of those. You know, so I mean, I would argue that Oregon's schedule this year was more challenging than it was the year before. If they handled business, they were 12-0.
Part of the reason too, Matt, is like, look, it kind of goes back to what we talked about before. What do all three of these teams have in common? They play in the Big Ten. Notre Dame will always just get looked down upon for their schedule. They could play the same schedule that Oregon did, but Notre Dame's will just by default be weaker because they're not in a conference. That's just how it goes, unfortunately. I'm not saying I agree with it, nor am I saying that you agree with it. That's just how it gets looked upon, that they play in a conference. And so then by that logic, playing in a conference is just harder, which is something that I don't buy into. I don't. Yeah. I understand the overarching logic as to what's behind it, but I don't buy into it.
Yeah. I want to make sure people understand what I was saying about the Jeremiah Love thing coming back. The premise of the question was, would you be willing to have some departures if you brought him back? And the reason I didn't mention Aeneas in that conversation was I was working with the premise that all the returners leave, even if they all left and all you had was Jeremiah Love, Javian Osborne, and Jonas Walton. If that's what I had to sacrifice to bring Jeremiah Love back, if he was willing to come back, I would do that. I wasn't insinuating that all those guys are going to leave if he came back. I was going with the premise of the question. And then that so just make sure we're clear, because sometimes when I talk about things like that, if somebody jumps in late or didn't hear the beginning, they may think that I'm talking about guys leaving. It was the premise of the question was, would you be willing to deal with accept personnel losses from the room if it meant one more year from Jeremiah Love? And I was going to the extreme of I'd be okay losing all the returners if it meant one more year of Jeremiah Love. And part of that's because of who you got coming in. I don't want to lose Aeneas Williams. I don't want to lose Kedron Young, and I don't want to lose Nolan James Jr. I think they all are really good football players. And that brings us to our final question. We'll get here from Jay Melvin. He says, will our running back room still be great with Aeneas, Kedron, and Nolan James? And then I would also throw in the freshman in there. I'll let you get first crack at that, Trev, before we get out of here.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. It's just going to look different than what it did this year. Because amongst all those guys, like I can't confidently say that any of them are going to be Jeremiah Love, nor should anybody's expectation should be somebody should be the next Jeremiah Love. I think Notre Dame's running back room is still going to be extremely productive in 2026. It'll just look different. Kind of like how I said about the receiving room this year, how you're going to have like one receiver at like 600 yards, two at 500, one at 400. I very much could see that being Notre Dame's running back room next season. I think it's just going to look different because you don't have that Heisman finalist Jeremiah Love currently. Could some players play up to that? Yeah. But I'm not going to ask Kedron Young to do that a year removed from an ACL injury. I'm not going to ask Nolan James to do that a year coming off of a red shirt. You know, I'm not going to ask Aeneas to do that coming off of a roll. And I'm not going to ask two true freshmen to come in and do that. I think those standards are just not fair. So I think it's going to look a little bit different for that year, but all encompassing. You look at what the running back room was responsible for this year. I think it could look similar next year, overarching stats. There's just going to be more mouths to feed and more people involved. That's how I see it going, but I still think it's going to be great because you have really, really, really good talent in that room next year.
Yeah. You also have to think about, I think the offensive line, if people are healthy and everybody comes back that I want to come back, I think that'll also be a better unit as well. And that'll factor into it as well. I think there's a chance these guys could run behind a better offensive line. I think the pass game has a chance to be even better next year to take some of that pressure off. But look, the reality is Aeneas Williams has stepped up in big moments on big stages and made big plays. Kedron Young's a very talented back. And I mean, the staff has raved about Nolan James Jr. I was very high on him coming out of high school. To your point, there may not be a star in that group. Maybe one emerges. You know, like could some of those other guys be as good as Jadarian? Maybe. You know, but it's like you said, it's going to look different. But the supporting cast around them is going to be a lot different too. I don't know that you're going to need to ride the running backs next year the way you did, assuming the offensive line plays the way that we hope it is. That's where I'm at. So, yep. It's a good question. And I think that is, I believe we don't have any more super chats. It's a lot of questions we couldn't get to. We'll have some more mailbags next week. But yeah, it was a lot of fun today. A lot of fun.
Good first Friday free for all mailbag back. That is for sure. Well, folks, here in a little bit, the guys on IB Nation Sports Beat getting ready to go live. They're going to be talking a little bit more about the Notre Dame ACC relationship. So if you want to get more of that talk, go ahead and hop on over to their show. Brian and I will be back next week to continue really unfolding and recapping Notre Dame's 2025 season. We're going to talk about some different needs, where to go from here. Definitely not going to want to miss that. On your way out of here, make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Share this podcast with your friends and family. Anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until next week, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.